but you can still watch by TV or participate by Zoom. And we're going to try and get that live stream up and running very soon. In the meantime, we're going to begin our meeting with our pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask, we've got our student of the month down here, Alessia Osterling. Come on down from Manhattan Beach Middle School to lead us in the pledge. We have the microphone for her. Found one? Hopefully it works. Is that it? Hello? It says it's on. Can you hear me? No? Hello? Let's try this one.
What a night. Try it again. It should work.
This should work? This should work. This is working. Alessia.
Thank you. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't go away. We've got all sorts of stuff for you. We've got your principal coming down, Ms. Wynn, again from Manhattan Beach Middle School, to say a lot of nice things about you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a very proud principal for Alessia here at Manhattan Beach Middle School. And I nominated Alessia for this time because she truly embodies and exemplifies what it means to be a student at MBMS. She models integrity, compassion, and empathy for all of her peers and the staff. When I first started there this year, she welcomed me with the brightest smile. And at assembly, she's always cheering all of her peers on, even in class competitions. She's an 8th grader, but she's certainly cheering on even our 6th graders and helping them feel welcome. So once we had this opportunity, the first person that came to mind was Alessia, and we're super proud to have her represent MBMS.
Congratulations on being chosen. You're chosen amongst all your peers, and of course, when I was going to school, they were cheering against me. So the fact that you're cheering for everybody is a big thing, but just your outstanding attitude and support for everybody, and of course, the great work that you're doing there at Manhattan Beach Middle School. And I understand you were on a field trip today down to the Museum of Tolerance, and that's what we need more of in this city, this country, our community, so we really appreciate all that you're doing out there for us. So on behalf of my colleagues here, I want to present you with a certificate to recognize you for coming down here and helping us start our meeting. We've got a city pin as well, which we know you're going to wear proudly at school, and all your friends are going to support you and cheer you on wearing that. And just want to say thank you again, and do you have anyone here in the audience you want to introduce?
Probably my sister, brother, and my dad. Right back there.
Thanks again. Congratulations. Let's take a photo.
Do it.
Want to come down if you want.
Oh, like.
Right there.
My niece, Bella Jacobson.
Oh,
Bella? Bella.
Isabel.
Isabella.
Uh-oh. Look at mom, then look at the This way, this way. 1, 2. Wait, can I move the chair? Oh, yeah. It's a constant problem. Okay. Well, and then a little closer, yeah. 1, 2, and. Thank you.
oh wait, one over here.
Over here.
Over here.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Good. Absolutely. Thank you.
Congratulations. You see her tell me so long.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. Good to see you again.
All right. Let's keep the spirit of Alessia in mind as we continue on in this meeting, cheering each other on here tonight.
Yes. I like that.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lesser.
Here.
Councilmember Haworth.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery.
Here.
And Mayor Napolitano.
And yes. I am here.
And Steve.
All right, and Steve. Ceremonial calendar, we kind of did that. We don't have anything else, so we're going to move on to approval of agenda and waiver of full reading of ordinances, unless someone has something that they want to pull off the agenda later under consent calendar. Are there any polls tonight? I don't see any buttons, so just raise your hand or as we get the system up and running. I see you trying to push the screen, just
No,
without
I'm
any-
just looking at this thing over here.
So you're nothing for the consent calendar?
No, I'm just trying to get it to the right
Anybody else?
spot.
Make the approval, Your Honor, make the move to approve the agenda and waiver for reading of ordinances.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery, seconded by
I'll second that.
Councilmember Franklin. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Haworth,
Yes.
Mayor Napolitano,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is City Council and Community Organization announcements of upcoming events. These are events, you got 1 minute to give us the rundown of what's happening in the community from any organizations or the LA County Library, for instance. Come on down, Josh.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Josh Murray, and I'm here on behalf of Manhattan Beach Library. Adults are invited to participate in the evening book club to discuss The Night Ship by Jess Kidd on Monday, March 6, 2023 from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Manhattan Beach Library. Based on the true story, this epic historical novel from award-winning author of Things in Jars that illuminates the lives of two characters, a girl shipwrecked on an island off Western Australia, and 300 years later, a boy finding a home with his grandfather on the very same island. To order a copy of this book, please call the library at 310-545-8595 or visit our website, lacountylibrary.org. And again, this program will take place on Monday, March 6th, 2023 from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Manhattan Beach Library. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And you get a free book? That's a good deal. All right. All right. Other community announcements?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Budget Community Meeting coming up on Thursday, February 16th. This will be via Zoom. This will give the community an opportunity to give us their priorities and interact and look at the city's financial resources and spending plan and learn what's on the horizon and tell us about their ideas and priorities that they would like to be included in this year's fiscal year 23-24 budget. Again, this will be via Zoom. We're advertising this through all social media, newspapers, and we encourage the public to come and take this opportunity to let us know what they would like as part of the spending plan as we have entered into our budget season heading to May for proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I'm Taline Mirzakhanian, Acting Community Development Director, here on the behalf of the Community Development Department this evening to announce the launch of the long-awaited long-term outdoor dining efforts webpage. Please visit us at www.manhattanbeach.gov/outdoor dining. For those interested in submitting an application for the task force, you can access and submit the application directly from this webpage. The application deadline is February 24th at 5 p.m. Staff has already received 29 applications for task force positions, and these applications will be presented to the council at the March 21st meeting for final selection. As a reminder, of the 15 seats designated for the task force, we have 8 open seats. These include seats for 1 downtown resident, 1 North Manhattan Beach resident, 1 non-Manhattan Village Shopping Center commercial business owner, 2 at-large residents, and 3 at-large residents or business operators. Again, the link to the website is www.manhattanbeach.gov/outdoor dining. Please visit for more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Frank Hiela, Honorable Mayor and members of Council. I'm the Program Director for our CERT organization, and I'm here tonight to try to get everyone a little bit more ready for the big earthquake that we will experience someday here in Manhattan Beach. Recently, we had an earthquake off our coast to Malibu, which woke a lot of us up in the middle of the night. And now we're watching what's going on in Turkey and Syria. Watching the news this evening before I came here, I saw Lucy Jones, who came and actually talked to us in our community. And she said this is the time for our residents here in the Southland to get ready. And CERT offers a website, mbcerta.org, to get training, to be prepared, and also to check out the state's website, ready.gov. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask for some technical help while we're getting comments, because I can't get to my touch screen. Can anybody get to the touch screen?
No.
Oh,
We're all on the
never mind.
same-
We're on the same boat.
Yep.
It's all good. Sorry. I didn't realize you guys.
Back to me.
I assume.
Chief.
Good evening, Mayor Napolitano, members of the council. Rachel Johnson, your police chief. And I wanted to take this opportunity to invite the community to our first of 2 town hall meetings we're going to hold this year. It's going to be on Wednesday, March 1st at 6 p.m. at the Jocelyn Community Center. Please join us. We're going to discuss crime trends, crime prevention, living with wildlife, and a variety of other topics that are served by the police department. We also encourage questions beforehand so that we can aggregate them and make sure everyone's question gets answered. So if you have questions that you'd like answered at the town hall, please email us at askacop@manhattanbeach.gov, and we look forward to seeing you on March 1st at the town hall meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Honorable Mayor, excuse me, and City Council members, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. David Archer, Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to invite the council, the gallery, and all the residents to come out to our monthly mixer at Tin Roof Bistro next Wednesday, February 15th. It'll be from 5:30 to 7:30, and we look forward to seeing you out there. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the audience for community announcements? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom? Okay, council, any community announcements?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple of comments via email today that they thought that our e-comment site was down, but city clerk, assistant city clerk informed me that we are closing e-comments now at noon. We used to do that at 5:30, correct? So just so people understand that, you know, a lot of us used to submit a little bit later. So it wasn't down, but we still got your comments via email, but I just want the community to know that.
Okay.
One, Your Honor. Just a thank you to the fire department. They, as most of you know, we do a Beach City's toy drive this year. Most people actually get toys delivered to us before Christmas. But as usual, Manhattan Beach residents are so generous, they donate toys almost year-round. So we had about 300 toys left over in the fire department. Rudy and the rest of those guys over there held them in protective cover until we could disseminate them this last 2 weeks to charities that take toys year-round. So thank you to help me unload it, store it, and deliver it. So thank you to them for doing that for us.
Very good.
That's all.
All right.
What was your favorite?
All of them.
The big wheel. Councilor Franklin, anything for me?
I'm set, thank you.
Okay. All right, that takes us to public comments. These are comments of 3 minutes per
Mr. Mayor,
person.
Councilmember Lesser raised his hand for community announcements.
Let's see, I don't have him on my screen. Let me expand my screen here and see if I can get him. All right, there he is.
Mr. Mayor, I just simply wanted to say to the public, I'm participating remotely because I'm recovering from surgery, but I'm pleased to be able to participate in this important meeting. I also wanted to add the comments of Councilmember Howarth regarding why the deadline for e-comments was made earlier. It's to allow council members an opportunity to read the comments before the meeting. So I think that was an important addition to the earlier comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, without anything else, we're going to move on to public comments. These are comments of 3 minutes per person on anything within the subject matter of the council in the city of Manhattan Beach. And you can speak to anything in general here or something on the agenda, but if you speak on an agenda item, then we ask that you not try and speak later on that same item. And typically those items have 2 minutes anyway. So anyone wants to come forward and speak now, please do so. Gail, that's you. You're looking around. No one's next to you.
Yeah, I hate going first. Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm Gail Fortis, a 35-year resident. I'm against High Rose Project verandas as it is proposed. I am speaking for myself and as a representative of Chill the Build, a not-for-profit group which includes among its members and supporters real estate investors, professionals, and developers. We are not about blocking development, but ensuring safe and thoughtful development. Our city needs housing, particularly affordable housing, which is not high-rise. Our challenge to high-rise is in the spirit of public interest and safety. The adverse impacts resulting from high-rise, being next to Chevron, are numerous. Environmental injustice and refinery pollution are part of Earth Justice's recent lawsuit, including federal civil rights violations, when the city of Corpus Christi, Texas, decided to locate a desalinization plant in a predominantly African American and Hispanic neighborhood. Just like in that case, you are saying the disadvantaged people who would live in high-rises 6 low-income units don't deserve the protections of California health and safety laws, some of the most protective in the country. Great. You are now complicit in the decades-old legacy of taking advantage of minority groups and low-income housing. How about the study by Keck School of Medicine, July 16, 2020, that states living near natural gas flaring poses health risks for pregnant women and babies? We all know you're not experts, but you have completely ignored even our state law, AB 2011, which 15 of Berkeley's brightest determined the need for a 3,200-foot buffer zone from refineries. To you, city planning, wherever you are, just a few adverse impacts resulting from the high-rise location itself. High-rise is not about solving the housing crisis. It's an opportunistic developer's dream, earmarked for short-term rentals, that sets a precedent for many more overbuilds to come. It is a blatant disregard for residents' health, safety, and well-being, both current and prospective. This is pure social injustice. So what's really going on here? You're our leaders. We voted you in. The far majority of your residents are against high-rise, as you've heard, and for good reason. You've all said it yourselves, with the yes high-rise voters apologizing and saying the wrath of a no vote would be worse. Is this apathy rearing its ugly head? What, the residents are supposed to fight this for you? Really? This is your job. Please do what's best for the city and your residents. Reverse the embarrassing reversal of your October 18, 2022 decision. Thank you for listening and for your consideration.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Frank Keough again. Not going to make any comments on high roads tonight. I think Gail did that. And I'm going to switch it up a little bit. We had our CERT board meeting last night. And one of our CERT members also volunteers for the American Red Cross. She got involved in the Monterey Park shooting incident and brought some important information to us that I think our city should also consider. We never know when these incidents are going to happen or where they're going to happen, but there are bleeding control kits that are available that could be put right next to the AEDs and all of the city facilities. And Red Cross offers a short online training for people to be able to act and be able to stop life-threatening bleeding before our emergency responders arrive on scene. And I think it's something that really could possibly save lives in the future. We always hope these incidents are never going to happen in our community, but everybody else thinks that, and then it happens in their community. So I think it's a topic we should consider and maybe go forward with that training and putting those bleeding control kits right next to where our AEDs and all our city facilities, and encourage our school districts to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ray Joseph. I'm a realtor here in town. And one of the problems when selling a property or doing any sort of transaction is uncertainty. So if you don't know what you can do with the property or not, that's when you run into challenges, and then people get cold feet and they can't make well-informed decisions unless they know everything that's going on. And so some of the zoning that we have makes these things a little complicated. For example, one example is a 24-foot wall effect. And what that is if you have a lot wider than 35 feet, you cannot have an exterior wall from current grade go taller than 24 feet. That also applies in the sand section where you're allowed to build 30 feet from the average of the four corners. So you build an exterior wall 24 feet, inset 3 feet, and then you can go back up. That's incredibly restrictive, especially in the sand section. And some of these lots are half lots that have that. And so then on the top floor, you're insetting it quite a bit, and it's a huge negative because you don't have much square footage to play with anyways. So I think that there's some things that we need to look at in terms of what we have. And if you have a concave lot too, that makes the matter even worse, because if you're only 24 feet from that elevation, I mean, 6 foot's a bad enough drop, but let's say you've got a steep lot like this, then it's a greater delta from the maximum height. And those things can be a little bit painful. And then lots outside of the sand section, if you have a concave lot, you're getting crushed by the 24-foot wall effect. So there's some things that we can look at where, because a lot of the shapes of lots are not original shapes. They've been modified over the years, where people, kind of stair step them and whatnot. And so you don't necessarily have a natural slope. So I think our rules should allow for, if you put the land back to a natural elevation or a slope that's appropriate, then that should work fine versus saying the slope when you got the property. So I think there's a lot of things we can do to, just make things a little bit easier for people and make some properties better. And in the sand section, I think there's like 40 or 50 lots that are wider than 35 feet. And a lot of those, like, for example, El Porto on the east side of Ocean, every single one of them's 35 feet. So if you're 35 feet, 1 inch, guess what? 24-foot wall effect. So I think there's some things we can do. We could review a lot of the planning things and make some easier decisions for people when they buy a property. They don't have to worry about getting signed with some of these obscure rules. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Public participation?
Hello, Heidi Radin, Tree Section resident. I wanted to talk about public safety and support for law enforcement. January 9th was National Law Enforcement Day, and while cities across the country lit their police stations in blue, flew the blue line flag, and hosted community events in support of their law enforcement, Manhattan Beach did absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, the city of Los Angeles did even worse. LAPD Chief Moore banned the blue line flag, a flag that merely represents law and order and support for police. These days, a career in law enforcement in America is beyond challenging and difficult. Worse so in progressive cities that are plagued with radical district attorneys like George Gascon, who don't do the job they were hired to do, go against the job they were elected to do, and ignore the laws at the expense of others. The collateral damage in this is getting worse and worse. Every single day, the collateral damage in this is getting worse and worse every single day. Some recent examples, since the last city council meeting, there were 2 armed robberies, one at Beach Pizza in the middle of the day and one at Macy's. And I've already mentioned the endless car thefts. And how about the deranged homeless vagrant Bodie, who regularly masturbates in front of Hennessy's, repeatedly harassing a female manager who happens to be a single mother with no consequence, thanks to Gascon. She has to walk to her car by herself, armed with a knife at the end of each shift. So how do you think it feels to be a cop right now, with your hands literally tied behind your back and you can't really do your job? And when you do arrest criminals, they are back on the street the next day. So I imagine that feels pretty awful and demoralizing. So in the spirit of doing my part for the community, I would like to show my appreciation and heartfelt gratitude for MBPD. Heather, Kim and I and her children, we actually reimagined the blue line flag. And it's that's perfect. It's a testament to how we feel about our police and how we support our police. And we're here tonight to ask Mayor Napolitano and the entire city council, our city manager, Bruce Moe, and of course, Chief Johnson, to accept our reimagined blue line flag and display it proudly in our police station lobby window.
Mayor Napolitano, back in April 19th, in a city council meeting, you eloquently stated, City Council speaks on behalf of the city and the city residents. Every decision we make, some of them like it and some of them don't. So we stand before you guys today representing the majority of residents who fully support our PD and ask that you authorize the display of this flag. And I know it will mean the world to our brave men and women that currently serve our city, and in the future hires looking for a city to work at that backs the blue. We have complete faith in you that you will execute this for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'd like to present this to you, or,
City Clerk.
okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Hello, my name is Heather Kim, and I'm just really glad that Heidi was up here just a minute ago explaining about the flag that my children and I and Heidi, we all made together, and it was not just a fun project for them, but it's a real heartfelt thank you to all the men and women who serve our community. And I've been honored to be part of the Citizens Police Academy recently, and so I've gotten a deeper understanding of what our police officers do, so I really wanted to say thank you. And I think it's actually more important to display this flag in City Hall somewhere. But anyways, I think we should display this flag to demonstrate that we are a city and community that support our police, that stand with our police. My kids and I had the best time making this flag because we greatly value and appreciate law enforcement and recognize how much more dangerous their jobs have become because criminals don't go to jail anymore. So police are constantly arresting and releasing and arresting and releasing. Media has tried to slander the blue line flag, but people need to understand the blue line represents a line between law and order. Can't we all agree that law and order is equitable for all? I also find it appalling that LAPD's Michael Moore, chief, recently banned this display of the thin blue line flag in his department and on their cars. I feel it's essential to show our police in our city that we are a community of residents and leaders that back the blue, and we need to support the morale of our force. It is our civic duty. I am currently enrolled in the CPA program, as I just mentioned, with MBPD. It has been so informative, and I learned so many things about what the police do on a day-to-day basis and how every interaction really is can be very dangerous. It could end their lives. They may not go home to their families. And it's also dangerous when criminals, they can also be shot and killed due to their actions. And it is a split-second decision that these officers have to make. I'm compelled to speak about having the importance of having the support of the police and their own flags, since our town seems to be really into flags and signs. Law enforcement is the backbone to a civilized society. And this is one topic that, regardless of your political leanings, we should all demand a safe society. And we should all want a society where armed robberies aren't normal and everyone feels safe. So please, Mayor Napolitano, I urge you and the City Council and our City Manager and our Police Chief Johnson to sign this pledge that Heidi and I will deliver to you in a little bit, so that everyone can see the support that we have for our officers, and hopefully it gives them more strength to do their job every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers? None here in the audience? Anyone by Zoom? Okay. Jill?
Hi, good evening, Council. This is Jill Lampkin, Executive Director for the Downtown Manhattan Beach Business and Professional Association. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person this evening, but I did want to weigh in on a couple of things that are on the agenda tonight. The first one is I would like to say a special thank you to Chief Johnson, City Manager Moe, and Councilmember Hogarth for meeting with me for a lengthy period of time this week to talk about crime and homelessness in downtown Manhattan Beach and throughout the city, but mostly it was a very collaborative work session about how our businesses and the PD can work more collaboratively together, and some great ideas came out of that, and I'm so thankful for the amount of time that they spent with me. I think it will really be fruitful for our downtown. So thank you for that. And in conjunction with that, I want to provide our support for Chief Johnson's request to increase her staff within MVPD. I learned a lot from those folks this week, and based on how hard the job is that they are doing and what our expectations are as a community, I fully, and the DBPA fully supports the need to hire additional personnel, and whatever Chief Johnson thinks is needed, we definitely support that. So I hope that you guys will approve that this evening. And the other piece actually is about something that's on the consent calendar, and that's just a homeless report that has been submitted. I would like to just point out the numbers that are on there and how significant they are, and the amount of work that is being done with the homeless community. And I know in the past when we talked about homeless court, it didn't seem like, based on our count numbers previously, that we had such a large volume, but I think that by looking at that monthly report, you can see that the numbers are increasing, and I'm thankful for all the resources that you're providing and want to make sure that that continues, and if there is any chance of increasing those resources as well, we would also be fully in support of that. So mostly a big thank you to everyone, but also definitely support any needs that Chief Johnson has for increasing her staff. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? Okay, last call for the audience. All right, seeing none, we shall move on to the consent calendar, and these are routine customary items that are approved with one vote, and we had no polls, so is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Go ahead.
So moved.
So moved.
Oh,
Seconded, Lesser.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll read the title of the urgency ordinance. Urgency ordinance number 23-005U, an urgency ordinance of the City of Manhattan Beach, amending urgency ordinance number 20-0012-U as subsequently amended to rescind regulations pertaining to commercial tenants.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Haworth, seconded by Councilmember Lesser. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Mayor Napolitano?
Excuse me, yes.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery?
Yes.
Councilmember Haworth?
yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. No items removed from the consent calendar, no public hearings. Takes us to general business. Item number 10, consideration of police department staffing levels and authorization to increase permanent staffing by 7 additional police officers, 1 police support supervisor, 1 civilian background investigator, and consideration of enhanced recruitment incentives. Police Chief Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor Napolitano again, and members of the City Council. Rachel Johnson, your police chief, here before you to discuss that very long agenda item, so eloquently read by you, Mayor
I
Napolitano.
practiced this afternoon.
For the benefit of the public and those members of the City Council who returned to us following the November election, I wanted to take a moment to discuss how we got here and and our steps forward. So at our October 18th City Council meeting, the City Council increased the overhire authorization of our police officers from 2 to 5 sworn officers, bringing our total authorized sworn complement to 70. On the November 1st City Council meeting, following a request by the council to discuss this, we discussed the hiring of contract armed security to patrol the downtown area. Now, ultimately, the council decided against hiring armed security, but had a request to bring back a discussion about contracting with outside law enforcement agencies to provide additional coverage. And I returned to this body on the December 20th, 2022 meeting to discuss that. And what we learned is that while our mutual aid partners are certainly willing to assist us with single events and mutual aid requests, they were not able to support us with ongoing outside law enforcement support. Also at that December 2022 meeting, Councilmember Lesser requested that we examine police department staffing levels and return with a discussion prior to the mid-year budget. In addition, also at that December 20th meeting, Mayor Napolitano requested a discussion on enhancements to hiring incentives for new hires. And so I am before the council today to have both of those discussions. Now, determining police department staffing levels is quite a bit of art and a little bit of science, and there are 7 factors that I have here on the slide that aid us in determining staffing levels. Taken separately, they're insufficient and inadequate to determine staffing levels, but taken in concert and a little bit here and a little bit there really kind of gives us information as to how staffing models are determined. So the first factor is crime trends, and that's as it sounds. We look at our crime trends and we see if they're increasing or decreasing and see if there's correlation to the number of police officers we have working. The second one, which is the more common one, is the per capita approach. And this is something it's common because it's tangible. How many police officers do we have? How many people do we have in the city? And what's that ratio for police officers to our population? And so the chart that you have before you, you see that Manhattan Beach sits right in the middle with our agencies in the South Bay and some other comparables in terms of our officers per 1,000 members of our population. And while this is a good place to start the per capita approach discussion, it's still limited. Certainly we get census data, and that's on this slide, and we also get data regarding those folks who reside in town and are here during the day, as well as the folks who commute to Manhattan Beach for work. An important factor that we can't really quantify is our visitor and tourist population, and that's, as you would imagine, especially in a city like ours, is obviously part of the calculus that we need to consider when we're determining police department staffing. Another metric that we use is minimum staffing, and minimum staffing is also as it sounds. We determine what the minimum number of police officers is per shift per day to adequately respond to calls and serve our community. We kind of double that for the number of shifts we have. We tack on about 25% to account for structured vacancies for training, vacation, and other responsibilities. And we extrapolate that out over the work week, and that's a minimum staffing number. But often that number is anecdotal or has evolved over time in ways that are not easily quantifiable. So again, it's a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole puzzle. Fourth, we have the authorized budget levels, and that's pretty simple math. How much money do we have for people? And that tells us how many people we can afford. And so that's also part of our calculus. A good metric for determining staffing is a workload analysis, and this is a pretty tedious analysis, but again, it has limitations. We can really quantify what our patrol officers do because we have our computer-aided dispatch. We can determine how long it takes them to get to a call, how much time they spend on calls, how much available time they have, and how much time they spend on proactive police activity. Those are easy to quantify for our patrol officers. What is less simple are those duties for our sworn officers who don't work in patrol. For instance, our detectives. It's much harder to quantify the workload of a detective when they're writing search warrants or reading the receipts of information from getting a search warrant or doing other follow-up. It's much more difficult to quantify their workload. So workload, again, is a piece of the puzzle, but not the entire puzzle. And moving on to benchmarking, which is as it sounds as well, which we find similarly situated agencies. We see how many people they have and we compare ourselves to them. It also has limitations because every city is different, but also because of our final factor, which are community expectations. A critical element of the police department's operating philosophy is that the police and the community are one and the same, and that we are operating in partnership with the same goals. And the expectations set by the city council and the community for the police department should drive the department's staffing, both in overall agency size and the staffing allocation. Our shared expectations that police officers should respond to calls for service promptly, engage with the community, conduct professional investigations that lead to arrests, and be responsive to community concerns related to quality of life matters are an important part of determining our staffing levels at the police department. Now, I began this discussion by saying this is more of an art than a science, and it truly is. And I stand before you today with a recommendation to add seven officers to our complement. And a very reasonable question is how we arrived at that number and not a smaller number or not a larger number. And at the forefront of my mind when examining all these factors and as well as our community expectations is how many people we need to accomplish these goals well, how many people we can manage with our existing supervisory management staff, and quite frankly, how many people we can fit in the building. That is also going to be a limitation as well. We can only have so many folks in our building and have adequate space for them to work and do the important things that they do. Our current staffing levels are sufficient to meet our core mission. As I discussed at our previous council meeting, we will always prioritize patrol staffing to ensure we are there when the community calls us. And we will have detectives to support patrol-based investigations and provide for resolution through arrests and prosecution through the district attorney. Now for our recommendations. The staff recommends that we hire 7 officers to support the formation and implementation of a crime impact group and a full-time bicycle patrol. Now this crime impact group would be based out of the Detective Bureau and would support the investigative efforts of the Bureau through conducting surveillance, following leads, identifying suspects, composing warrants, and making arrests as appropriate. This group would enhance the Detective Bureau's ability to identify, locate, and arrest persons who commit crimes in our city. And further, this group would be responsive to crime trends and can be used as needed for patrol-based efforts as well. This team would be supervised by an existing sergeant, which I will discuss more in just a moment. The addition of a full-time bicycle patrol consisting of 4 officers would allow us to have consistent, focused engagement of our community. This would be based out of the Community Affairs section and would support that section's goals of increased community engagement and forging lasting partnerships in our community. This bicycle patrol will provide high visibility patrol in residential and commercial areas, while also patrolling areas that are difficult to patrol in vehicles, such as the bike path, high-density traffic locations, and small streets and alleys. Now, currently, our parking and animal control section is supervised by a sergeant. If the council approves these recommendations, that sergeant position would move to support our crime impact group and supervise that team of officers. Moving that position would necessitate hiring a supervisor to backfill that position, and staff recommends the hiring of a civilian supervisor to supervise parking and animal control. This supervisor would provide continuity, career expertise in the areas of police support services, including parking enforcement and animal control, with a focus on quality of life matters throughout the city. The addition of a civilian supervisor also provides a career path for our professional staff members who currently have somewhat limited options in terms of upward mobility in our organization. In addition to the police support supervisor, staff recommends the addition of an administrative assistant to support the Detective Bureau. This position will provide clerical and technical support to the Detective Bureau to include the composition of crime bulletins, assisting the crime analysts in aggregating data, and providing timely case updates to victims. Finally, staff recommends the addition of a full-time background investigator. This position would ensure that the police department has the ability to move candidates quickly and efficiently through the background and hiring process. And this investigator would oversee any part-time or contract background investigators that we have to support them during periods of increased hiring, and would also support the personnel and training sergeant in their hiring and recruitment efforts. Now, the budget impacts of this staffing, police officer positions, 7 of them, at a cost of about $164,000 per position. It's worth noting to the council that if we hired a police academy trainee, this cost is reduced by about $30,000 per position. So this is the cost of hiring a lateral officer for a total cost of about $1.1 million. The hiring of a police support supervisor is $140,000. The hiring of a background investigator is $111,000, which would be offset by the reduction that we currently spend about $65,000 a year with our part-time background investigators. So some of that cost would be offset by reduction in hours for our part-time background investigator staff. And finally, our administrative assistant at $89,000, bringing the budget impacts of this proposal to $1.4 million. I'm going to transition to discussing recruitment. Over the past 18 months, with the assistance of HR, the police department has been able to keep pace with our turnover. We've been able to match those persons who've left us for retirement or other career opportunities, or those folks who aren't successful in the police academy or the field training process. We've been able to keep pace with our turnover. And we continue to attract candidates from Southern California law enforcement agencies, including those in the South Bay. We currently have 2 sworn vacancies, which is about 3%. Have a vacancy rate of about 3%, which puts us at the lower end of the agencies in our labor market. And while we have those 2 vacancies, we have 1 lateral candidate who's close to the end of the background process. We have an academy trainee who's in the academy. We have at least 2, but possibly 3 academy trainees slated to attend the academy that will begin in late March or early April. And we have interviews for lateral candidates on Thursday. So we are continuing to increase our hiring and get folks through the process to increase our sworn complement. Our vacancy rate is not reflective of any of our recruitment or retention efforts that we need to have a dramatic increase in what we currently offer as a recruitment incentive to our lateral candidates. But it's important to note that we haven't increased our lateral recruitment incentive since about 2003. So if the council is interested in increasing our recruitment bonus, and an option for the council is to tie that bonus to a percentage of the salary schedule to ensure that that recruitment bonus increases over time and it remains competitive in the market. If that's the desire of this body, staff recommends that the bonus be set at a discretionary range between 3% and 10% of the annual salary step in which the candidate is hired. And this would allow the city to adjust the bonus appropriately in response to changing market conditions. If the council provides direction to increase the cash incentive for recruitment, we also recommend that the council increase the referral bonus for our current employees because they are truly our best recruiters. Much like the recruitment bonus, the referral bonus hasn't increased in a long time and currently sits at about $2,000. If we were able to tie the referral bonus to 5% of the police officer trainee salary, in today's numbers, that would mean about a $4,000 referral bonus for any of our employees who refer another employee, which is an increase over our current bonus of $2,000. If the council provides direction to enhance these cash incentives for recruitment, the council can also provide direction on other enhancements to our recruitment incentives, such as sick and vacation transfers, education reimbursement, school loan repayment, or child care incentives or other incentives. If the council provides direction on incentives other than cash, we request that you provide us direction on the parameters of the enhanced incentives so that detailed information and options can be returned to this body for discussion. So finally, I'm going to land this word. Our recommendation. Staff recommends that the City Council approve proposed staffing and increase 2 positions within the police department as follows. The addition of 7 police officers, 1 background investigator, 1 administrative assistant, and 1 police support supervisor. It's recommended that these positions be added as a part of the mid-year budget. Staff further recommends that the City Council review the information provided regarding recruitment incentive enhancements and provide direction regarding any requested modifications to the recruitment incentive program. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, council, any questions? Councilmember Lesser, any questions? Yeah, just a second. Councilmember Lesser, questions?
So yes, Chief, I just wanted to thank you for this presentation and for our communications over the last several months, where I've asked, what is the analytic framework for justifying additional officers? And you've done that relatively well here. It's trying to explain how did we arrive at 65 with the overcount of 5 and now the additional ask to help give us some better basis for requesting the number that you have.
Councilmember Lesser, questions?
A question. The question is, some of members, residents have asked, has the Manhattan Beach Police Department been understaffed to match rising crime? Is that not one of the drivers here?
Well, Councilman Lesser, I thank you for the question. I thank you for your continued engagement since you've returned to the council. And the question of has we been understaffed, the answer is no. We are able to meet our core function. But this additional staff would allow us to meet some of our community requests for more engagement. I'd like to see more officers on bicycles. I'd like to see more officers on foot. I'd like to know who the police officers are that are around my business. And so some of this would provide for that, but also some of this would help us when we need additional staffing to arrest career criminals or conduct surveillance and other means to provide a shorter path from investigation to arrest to prosecution. We are certainly able to do that now, but this would increase our bandwidth and our capacity to do that more efficiently.
Some residents have asked me what this will mean for patrol, an increase in patrol, particularly as some residents are bonding together and engaging private security forces. I'm just wondering what this increase might mean to address the concerns about adequacy of patrol.
Well, certainly. Thank you again for that question. And our full-time bicycle patrol would be part of the patrol. They would be patrol officers. They'd have essentially the same function as patrol officers. They'd just be on bicycles. It allows them to slow down and see more things than you can take in a car. Allows them to get off their bikes and walk a little bit here and there to see what things are going on in our community. So you will see more people in the field through our bicycle patrol team.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question for either the finance director or the city manager about financials here, if I could.
Go ahead.
Mr. Finance Director, Steve, I guess my question is, how can we afford the additional cost? It's suggested in passing in the staff report the various ways that we might be able to provide for this, but three of the other council members on this council, two of the other councils, when we refunded up to 65 after the cutbacks following the 2008 recession, they cut back in officers. And I just wanted to better understand how we would be able to pay for these additional officers.
Thank you for your question, Councilmember Lesser, Steve Shirley, Finance Director. In reviewing our city's financial forecast and funding for the new police safety positions, we identified that we can accommodate this with a combination of our current existing revenue sources as well as looking at new funding sources, which we'll bring back at the mid-year. One of the funding sources we're taking a close look at is Measure A, which was our transit occupancy tax increase in 2019, where we got a voter approval up to 4%, and the entire measure was based on public safety and police, fire, public works, streets, and those type of things. And this is a perfect fit for that measure. We only used 2% of the up to 4% that was approved in 2019. And we have that capacity to go to an additional 2%, which would take our transit occupancy tax rate to 14%, which is comparable with local cities and like cities. So we'll bring that activity back with the mid-year budget for full discussion, but that would offset some of the impact. And the rest is, we do need it for long-term sustainability and financial health. It is something that we'll be looking to bring back and try to get that revenue source identified and put into place to offset some of these costs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Franklin?
Yes, thank you. Chief, thank you for the detail on this. It's a very good plan. There's a lot of good detail in here. I encourage residents to read the staff report. It's what we've been asking for. So going as far as the retention and referral bonus, I was just curious as to what % of the hirings does that represent that came into the department as a result of the referrals, and the referrer was paid, a referral bonus.
Councilmember Franklin, I don't have that information before me, but certainly anecdotally, as a new police chief, I've been speaking with a lot of my officers, a lot of them laterals, and what I hear from them is I heard from this person. I went to the academy with him, and he talked nothing but great things about the Manhattan Beach Police Department, and I wanted to come here. So our current employees are certainly, especially with our lateral candidates, are our best recruiters because laterals know what questions to ask, and our personnel are able to talk up the department.
Okay, good. And it's certainly money well spent. And just one thing I wanted to clarify when I was reading this, where you say, how many bicycle?
4.
Yeah, 4. When it talks about new officers for the e-bike, right, specifically. We're not going to put them on the old-fashioned bicycles. They're on e-bikes, and they got sirens and horns and lights, and it's really cool. I'm looking to get one, no. Those are not necessarily the new recruits are going to be doing that. That frees up positions that more experienced existing officers can be on that e-bike patrol.
Very well stated, Councilmember Franklin. That's exactly it. We'd obviously hire new officers, and then once we had those officers on board, we would advertise for interest in these positions, and they would be more than likely taken by our officers, because you have to be off probation to apply for any specialty. So we've taken on by our officers who are more tenured.
And the same for the crime impact group?
Yes, sir.
Right? That would
Exactly the
be
same.
more experienced, not just the new ones that are coming.
Yes, sir.
in. Okay, great. Let's see. Looking at it was very interesting, the report of the other cities, and noticing that Beverly Hills, which is in the news quite a bit, has quite a number greater than 70. I think it was 125 or 45. And for a population of 30,000. Is that just a sense there that there's more to protect, or more demand by the residents for security, or?
Well, I think it's a combination of community concerns and also those intangibles that we can't quantify with that per capita approach. How many people come to town to visit? How many people come to town for tourism? Those numbers, cities, we all try to quantify those, but I think it's also in response to those numbers too. We can't just be prepared for our residential population. We need to be prepared for the increase that we experience every day of the week, and also that as the weather gets nicer, those increases that you experience when more people are on vacation, they come to places like Beverly Hills and Manhattan Beach.
Okay,
Their
great.
budget's about 6 times ours as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's true.
yeah, I know. We need more sales tax. We would sort of support it by sales tax and businesses. So. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Chief. Again, appreciate the detail
Thank you, sir.
and the planning.
Okay, Councilmember Haworth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chief. I think we all are grateful for this thorough report. Just a few questions. So we wouldn't, if we hire these new officers and positions, I should say, we would no longer rely on CSC CSC like in a normal time. We still may have to hire them for the fireworks or 6-man additional, but we wouldn't just have them downtown being ambassadors and hanging out and watching people walk by, right?
Well, certainly we would have to examine the use of CSC once we're able to stand up our bicycle patrol and see just how necessary they are. We stood them up during the holiday period when we had increased activity in town, and they're now, now we're not having them until the weather increases and we have an increase in population. So certainly we would have to examine their usefulness, and I hear what you're saying for our ambassador program, but exactly, yes, we would still bring them in for 6-man and all of our special events where we need that increased robust traffic enforcement and other things that CSC is really good at providing for us.
Okay, and with the background investigator, you said that some of the cost for that position will be offset because right now we have a part-time position.
We have 2 part-time background investigators.
So this is going to become is an additional full-time, or is it combined, like it's another position, this background investigator?
Well, my plan is to onboard the full-time investigator and start to phase out some of our part-time investigative work and use that more on an as-needed basis, and have the capacity of a full-time employee to shepherd backgrounds through the process more efficiently, assist the sergeant, and do other things that our part-timers just simply don't have the capacity to do because they're typically retired police officers. They have a limitation on the hours they can work.
Great, that is helpful. And in the Detective Bureau, well, first, it's so smart to make the parking and animal control supervisor civilian. I think that seems like a great idea. The Detective Bureau, let's see, is it the existing sergeant? No, where's the admin? Oh, Detective Bureau Administrative Assistant. So that's professional staff.
Yes, ma'am.
So could that person, it was nice of Jill Lemkin to thank us for the meeting we had. We heard a lot of concerns from her about when residents or business owners report crimes and police come, then they might not hear what happens next, right? And that is really something that makes you feel like nothing's happening, even though something's happening. Do you think that adding this administrative assistant will actually allow for, or will they be directed to do some of that engagement with those folks?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Herworth, and the short answer is yes. One of the reasons when I was speaking with the detective sergeant about the need for an administrative assistant was some of these things where our detectives were trying to return their own phone calls and do their own correspondence with victims. And so it's always trying to trade that off with investigating cases and making arrests, going to court and things like that. So having a person who can triage those phone calls, make sure that phone calls are returned and information is returned to citizens, that's a big part of why we would like this administrative assistant.
Plus, I mean, 4 folks within a detective bureau, which
Right.
seems like really needed. And you said that those 3 additional officers in the detective bureau, they'll be doing surveillance, serving warrants, IDing, locating, arresting, but they could be used for patrol I think you said that.
I did, and so what I meant by that is if we're having a crime pattern, let's just say in a parking lot, they could be, and it's patrol is going to be the first group that is impacted by that. They know about it. They can make a request to that crime impact group to conduct surveillance in there, maybe in plainclothes cars or walking around to try to combat those crime trends before they really get out of control.
That's great. And I just have, I think, 2 more things. One of our residents, I didn't get anybody saying, don't do this. No surprise. But somebody did say, we hope that the police department will report out more on social media. Because, we will hear things on Nextdoor or Facebook or something from our neighbors. And can you just comment on how sometimes there's limitations on how and when you might want to report out? Because I don't think it's a lack of staff that is making that a reality right now.
Certainly, we try to keep the public informed about things that are going on in the community, and we're actually working right now on revamping our crime messaging that we give to our neighborhood watch folks, and then we're going to be putting it on our social media channels and broadcasting it more widely, but we're changing that format so it's a little bit easier to read and a little bit easier to digest, because I understand the hunger and the need for that information. But also with some of our incidents that occur, we're just simply either not able to report some of the things for confidentiality, or by the time we have information that would be useful, our ability to apprehend someone, right then has passed. And so a great example of that is when we have an incident and we're not called until 10 minutes after it occurs. And so by the time we get there and we obtain video and all these things, those persons are likely out of the city. And, they're posting their pictures on social media or via other means is less effective and less impactful because the public is not immediately able to aid us in their apprehension.
And the last, I'll save my comments for the comments section. Look at that.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Moving on. Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery, any questions from you?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, none from me. We'll open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public want to come down and speak to this item? You have 2 minutes. Come on down to the podium.
I'm sorry, I just had my notes. Well, it seems like a no-brainer to me that City Council should happily approve this Chief Johnson's request for more sworn officers. As a current member of the Citizens Police Academy, I was able to go to Hermosa Beach Police Department last week to see their simulation room. It constantly gives officers practice with real-life scary scenarios to really sharpen their skills. The computer system, which is like a game, can branch off into different scenarios that would require a more talking approach versus a taser or a gun. When our officers shoot at the range, the target is not moving, but it is in this simulation, and this is invaluable. Secondly, they have a mat room to practice jiu-jitsu techniques specifically for officers when they come hand-to-hand with suspects. Like if they need to be cuffed but won't comply, there is a safe way to get their hands in cuffs using these moves. I believe the officer mentioned it was maybe $400,000 that Hermosa had paid for their mat room or the simulation room. And I hope City Council can find a way to also fund this. If officers are getting to a higher level of comfortability engaging with suspects and it enables them to go home to their families, which keeps our community safe, is it worth it? I think so. Some cities are even hiring or considering hiring criminals to become police officers. That's how bad it is. Police officers risk their lives for a pretty thankless job with its duties increasing. And with the split-second decision that will either end their lives if they're too late or send them to jail for the rest of their lives, if the jury or politics deems them guilty. It is an honorable occupation, but not a desired one anymore. We need to do whatever we can by increasing incentives to get the top officers in our town. You can't put a price on our lives. Our lives matter. My business matters. My property matters. My sense of security matters. My quality of life matters. Yes, not in my backyard. Thugs are not welcome here. And do you know who doesn't support police? Thugs and their families, criminal sympathizers. That's who. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Napolitano, members of council, I just want to thank Chief Johnson. I think that was very well put together. 7 positions is a lot to ask for. I think the dollars, I think Steve's got some creativity in how to come up with the dollars. But as a downtown resident for a lot of years, I think we need it. I appreciated Jill and whatever time she spent with y'all, but just talking about the businesses that are downtown, I think practically we need a police presence downtown. Bicycles, I love it. E-bikes, I'm going to negotiate for one of these with Councilmember Franklin. But just, I think, I mean, look what happened since our last meeting, what happened with Pasha again, and then Vaughn's again. And I just wonder if police were present, if they were there, if they were on a bike, if they were walking around, if we had more people. I think creativity, you guys need to figure out how we pay for it. I like the idea of not using CSC on their phones and doing whatever we can do to save dollars there, but whatever creativity we can find in the budget. I would absolutely support Chief Johnson. Whatever she thinks we need, let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Patrick Sharpless, and I fully support the initiative. I think it's a great idea. We need police. I support the opinion of the lady who just spoke. These are important issues. We need crime and protection in our communities. But I didn't hear any discussion about the CSOs. And it was a little over a year ago that came up to council from the former chief of police. And the CSOs were apparently being weeded out from parking enforcement to help the police officers. And because they weren't available to do parking enforcement, City Council was asked to give $350,000 for last parking to help support that effort. And I've learned that general law cities aren't even supposed to be having contractors to issue citations for vehicle parking violations. So, you know, I'm a little torn on if this is such a great idea without any clarity on what's going to happen with the CSOs. In my opinion, what we should do is give them all the police officers they need, pay all the bonuses that they need to get the best quality people, but we need to look carefully at how those CSOs are going to be managed. Because if we get more officers, does that mean they're going to come here next year in 6 months and say, well, we need another $500,000 for more LAS parking people? Or is that the way it's going to work? I think that's a consideration that sadly didn't get addressed and should be addressed, because I don't think the whole thing was right to begin with. And I think we should be looking carefully at what the duties and responsibilities of the city are with respect to having that contractor, since the law prohibits having them to issue citations for vehicle parking violations. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Brent Keel again. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Many of my friends, neighbors, residents couldn't be here or don't necessarily want to come to council meetings, but they did want me to come and express all of their thanks to our police department and our police officers that are out there. And they support this fully. They want to give the police department the impression that what they need, what's justified, the residents want to give them what they need to do their job. And public safety really is the number one reason why we have our local government, is to protect our residents. And they fully support whatever decisions that you make as council to support our public safety, both police and fire. And with that, they also have a concern that they have been living in a bubble of believing that there really hasn't been any crime in Manhattan Beach and it's been very small. And what's been going on in the news media has really opened a lot of their eyes to say, like, things are happening here that I didn't even know about. And I think through the town hall meetings and the information that the police department is going to provide will be helpful to our community in ways that they can also protect themselves for something that they didn't really believe was there. So I encourage you to support the police department in every single way that you can. The community is behind you and that department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other speakers? All right. Anybody Zoom? Okay. Lee?
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for taking my comments today. My name is Lee Phillips. I do support the police department. I'm also a member of the Community Policing Academy this year and find it very informative. One of the concerns, I do support hiring more police. One of the concerns I have is the time frame to hire those police. It's not an overnight occurrence. So, you know, they have to go through the academy, and then there's probation. So that's academy, what is 6 months plus 6 months probation, so that's a year. And to get staffed up, and we have, 6 months to summer when we're typically much more busy. So I'd like to hear a plan for addressing safety to get officers staffed up. In my mind, CSC is more event ambassador staffing. Is there room or discussion for actual private security? They don't have to be armed. They can be unarmed security in a uniform. What about private patrols on some parts of the city to free police up? And basically it's just the time frame to get people staffed up. And then the other question is, so we staff up police. Police, you cite for misdemeanors. So a lot of the misdemeanor crimes. So I'd like to better understand how more policing will impact misdemeanor crimes that are really quality of life issues. And then finally, what about technology to help us with policing? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else by Zoom? Okay, last call for audience. Okay, council. Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me start off with the overall comments I have here. There's a lot to go through, so bear with me. Those who have not been residents since 2005, you won't know this information, but I'll kind of give you the historical aspect first. This is not the first time the city has had votes to consider or vote for overhires. The precedent, no such thing, was 2010. So let's not think this is the first time we've ever done this. It's not. Back then, I've been through 5 chiefs, 5 police chiefs. I'm not new here. The only person that has more time on the council is this guy to my left. But in those days, it was post-recession. We weren't worrying about recession. I disagree with my colleague, David, who talked about cutbacks. We did not cut back officers ever. What we did was not have new officers during our recession. We did not cut back officers. That's the second thing I want to talk about. The point we're talking about past that point is, what else is there? I don't want a police to engage in social media debates or instant gratification for people to go look at next door and think they know exactly what's going on. They do not ever know what's going on. Secondly, I don't want a chief to provide information on an ongoing investigation. That's not what they do. They can report out crimes when they have the information available and not before. They're not here to put out information that everybody feels better about it. When we have the information correctly, accurately, then the chief and staff will put it out. Not because someone wants to know right away, because they can't read on the scanner what's going on. They feel the police are hiding something from them. That's not what it is, folks. We all get notified when things happen. From every council member all the way down, we all know what's going on. When they can tell us things are going on, then it comes out. Let's start with those 2 premises. Second, let's see the second thing I'll mention here. I heard someone's comments earlier. They're upset about LAPD. We do not control Los Angeles Police Department here. Nor do we control Attorney Gascon and his catch and release policy. That's not what we control. we control Manhattan Beach. First and foremost, our own backyard. You want to go back to explanations? Prop 47-109, there's a lot to go through. Our job is the city, not outside the city or the county. So stop there with comments about what happens outside our boundaries. We can't control things outside our boundaries. The other comment, we never been told, and we don't support our police. Really? My 14 years on council, we've always supported our police. Bruce, you know, here, Stevie was here. We have equipment requests. Never have I seen the equipment requests. When the chief asked to do radios, Captain Eiglov knows, radios that work underground, we gave them to him. And the training, equipment, pay, and benefits, not one time have I ever seen that happen here. With the councils, prior councils, have ever said no to police requests. So throw that one out. That's also somebody's comments are not realistic. Yes, providing more police officers to the police chief is always a positive idea. Absolutely. I would say, let me phrase that for a second. The chief professional decides if we need extra patrols, to Jim Burton's comment, bike patrols downtown, to crime suppression, special details. That's also her choice, not to go looking for extra bodies. In the debate earlier was talking about, let's be like Beverly Hills. Let's go hire companies to carry guns. Oh, by the way, they can't actually do anything with the guns. All they do is call the police and have them come arrest them. So what are we doing? Seriously? No, we're not going to do what Beverly Hills did. But the idea of technology, we have been invited, and the chief knows this, and Bruce knows this, by Beverly Hills and their mayor and their staff to come look at what their police are doing with their drones and their extensive camera network all over Beverly Hills. But it comes at a price. So just think about that. We're looking at all avenues, and Chief Johnson is open to those ideas to expand what we do now and go in the future. But there's no way are we sitting on our hands thinking, oh, well, what we're doing is good enough. It's not ever good enough. As a former officer, I'll tell you what I've seen, and all of you have seen the same thing, more hostility towards the police. You're seeing more aggressiveness, more shots being fired, unfortunately more police officer fatalities that we never saw before. If you want to look at it as COVID as a driver, okay, the George Floyd incidents, the protests, the anger, the frustration, the economy, whatever you want to call it, or the driver was, we're seeing the effects now. You saw what happened in Riverside County. 2 sheriffs back to back. When's the last time you saw anything like that happen? It's not going away. And whether you want to point the finger at Sacramento or what's going on in other counties or judges, what decisions they make, that's not things we can control there. But we can't control adding bodies. Our chief has the flexibility for more patrols and more officers being seen, and to Chief Johnson's credit, they're undercover crime suppression details. You don't see them. Just because Jim doesn't see them downtown doesn't mean they're not there. It means they're undercover, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I don't want to see, yes, having uniforms every block would be great. Unreasonable, can't do it, but great. But the suppression details are undercover, and that's what they're supposed to do. So careful when you say we don't see police downtown. That is wrong. I know because I pushed foot patrols. The mayor knows this. Councilor Franken knows this. In 2020 during COVID, I can tell you, we pushed for that, and they did it. But they weren't all in uniform, but they were there. So another point of fact that I pushed back on what people say they don't show up or they're not there. One former council member, and I won't mention his name, would write up on details of police and tell them his opinion on what to do. And he was never an officer. And I can tell you nothing, nobody hates that more than I do, except me, the officers involved. That's not council's job. Our job is the Chief Johnson and her captains run the patrol, not council who's out there and second guess them in the field, or even third guess them from sitting up here. The other professionals, not us. So I don't want to see that ever again. The quality over quantity comments, I agree 100%. Chief, take the longest time you need to hire the best people you can. Don't rush to hire. And to comment someone made earlier that we're going to get 8 months or 10 months of the academy, no. If you read the staff report, Chief Johnson kept like trying to hire laterals, which we have great people that we've taken away from other agencies that want to work here. They're laterals. There is no academy downtime. They get an FTO, field trained officer, who lets them show them our city, let them learn what we do here, and then they go on from there. So we're doing the best we can. Do we have some people in the academy? Yes. But Chief Johnson, she can find a good lateral officer to leave LAPD or the sheriffs or whatever, and she can get a good one, we'll take them. But I don't want to see the button push speed over quality. Ever want to push that idea. My last one, I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap up this last one. It says, wrote my comments. Someone asked, can you afford this? $1.5 million? And the opposite answer should be, can we not afford it? Or should we not afford it? We cannot afford not to do it. And people forget, those of you that actually come to budget meetings, there's like 5 people ever show up for a budget meeting. And those of you 5 that actually show up, thank you. We have economic uncertainty reserves that I'm loath to use, as a former finance director will tell you. But this is economic uncertainty 101. If you don't know where money's going to come from, what's more important to you, public safety or what if? So this is one as an easy answer to make the right decision here. So I'm fully supportive of this, Your Honor, and the staffing, not only with Chief Johnson's officers, which is fantastic, but the staff, support staff she needs so that people in the field can do their job. That's my motion right there, Your Honor.
Okay. Before we go there, let me, quick question to the city attorney, though. It was brought up earlier, the issue that, the assertion that parking enforcement by a contract entity was illegal. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. There was a case a few years ago in a related subject that dealt with that issue, but cities can do that. General law cities can do that.
I imagine that company wouldn't be in business if they were not allowed to do that.
Correct.
Okay. Other speakers? Councilmember Haworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Councilmember Montgomery had a motion there to support what the chief is asking for.
Yes.
Correct? And I want to second that motion. We need to feel safe in our community, and we need to be safe. And one of the things that we always pride ourselves on is no call is too small, right? And I think that, what we're seeing with crime trends, et cetera, for whatever reasons, is that the calls are getting a little bigger. And so accordingly, so should our police department, because think about how this will also impact the officers and the civilians that we do have working in the police department. It will also reduce their workload a bit so that they are not working so much overtime and having mental health crises. I mean, it's a very good thing for the officers who are there already. I think that, it was a fantastic report. I also want to applaud, you got sworn in, last summer? Or, and then in December we said, come back and show us what it would look like, and then here you are. Well done, well done. I think, I believe our police department, our folks are the best of the best. And supporting them is something that I'm so happy to do, especially since, as Finance Director Sherillian pointed out, Finance actually has a plan. It's not just economic uncertainty. There is actually 2% that we are not capturing that we can use that is absolutely appropriately earmarked for public safety. So I really appreciate that that's also presented along. I appreciate one of the speakers who talked about, what Hermosa Beach is doing. Maybe we can look at stuff like that in the future. Appreciate you bringing up Mayor Pro Tem MPT, is that MPT Montgomery about, going to Beverly Hills and exploring technology. I think that's right. We got to do everything we can. Additionally, we do, people have brought up, misdemeanors, but people don't even want to call the police anymore. Call the police. Even if it's a misdemeanor, even if that person isn't held, if you can build a case against a person with enough misdemeanors, they will get prosecuted. So please, this is a public service announcement. Please call the police. Again, no call too small, but I don't want to diminish any of the calls either. So let me see. Full support, second. Appreciate the financial update.
So in summary, you're for funding the police, not defunding the police.
That was going to be my line. I'm not a crime sympathizer. I did want to say that I'm a little disappointed in the e-bike simply because it'll be harder to do a ride-along. I'm trying to figure that out, but I'll try to keep up with my pink beach strand cruiser. But yes, I support this.
Okay, sorry, Councilmember Franklin, but Councilmember Lesser had his hand up first.
I'm sorry. I'm happy to defer to Councilman Franklin.
Go.
Okay.
Your
All
shot.
right, thank you. I couldn't see him on the screen. Sorry about that, Councilmember Lesser. As to riding side saddle on the back of a bicycle, I just came back from Vietnam. That's a
Right.
very common practice, and
I'll work on it.
you could certainly, and the e-bike, will help. I'm fully support this proposal. I too am very grateful for the detail. It's what not only what the residents want, but it's what the council wants. And it's the only thing I'm hoping is that the bad guys are watching tonight, because it's going to be a different, there's going to be a different type of city. We've been doing a great job. This is only going to make it even better. I like the idea. I asked the question about the recruiting tool, word of mouth, comrades in arms, helping, getting other people. They socialize with them, other districts. I feel sorry for the other cities that might lose some good officers, but we have the advantage of several things. Number one, we can offer that kind of recruiting bonus and first-year bonus. You've got tremendous community support. We saw that with the thin blue line flag. I hope we do display that somewhere, because I think that means a lot to the police to know that, and first responders and the fire department to know that we support them. There's a lot of community support behind them. And I got to imagine it frustrates them in some communities where that support is not there. So I think that's very important. I love the idea of e-bike patrol. They're going to be visible. They're going to be interacting. There was another line you had in there, Chief, about also being able to liaison with the store owners and the restaurants and the downtown residents. That's extremely important. Those become our eyes and ears. The other thing that, again, sort of go along with your public service announcement, is we still need, as residents, to be part of the solution. Lock up your cars, lock up your homes, get security devices. It's not the Manhattan Beach that it was 40 years ago when I moved here, but we see the stories all the time. Someone had their bicycle stolen from their backyard with them in the home. It's because someone was watching them. Close that gate, lock the gate, close the garage door, lock that garage door. I would even go so far as to lock your bicycles and things inside the closet or inside the garage. Help your neighbors, help your community, help the police. Join Neighborhood Watch, get involved with that, get on their list. Talk to your neighbors, volunteer to help them. Be part of the solution, harden the targets. The things I'm a little bit concerned about is sustainability during recession. I, for one, having seen a lot of recessions and the economics, it's there. I mean, some things are unprecedented, like we had with the COVID and with the COVID support and response. So there's still a lot of money out there. You've got the Fed, who is, still raising interest rates. I think as of today, they raised them another 0.25%. You've seen it in your own homes. You've seen it in your interest bearing or your interest bearing accounts, because you're getting paid more. You're not getting paid nothing. You're getting paid more, but also in your expenses, with your loans and the like. So we're like you. We have loans and we have expenses like that. So I just want to make sure that we keep an eye on the sustainability, that this stays as a priority, and where we might have to make cuts in other areas, be aware that that's because we're putting this as a first-time priority. The other thing that's so important with this, it helps with the morale of our existing officers. I think it will help recruit future officers. Is we have to do something about prosecution services. We've gone, the previous councils, we've gone twice to the county
county district attorney and asked if we could pursue our own prosecution services for misdemeanors and for the homeless court. These are areas, the broken windows thing, these kind of crimes, criminals see them. They see that if they do get caught, they're released in 1 hour, 2 hours, things like that. And we've had reports of them coming back and doing it again. So I know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We've got a new council I would like to see, and would like to also make a motion that we go back to the district attorney's office and we make the appeal that we can go ahead and work with our companion city, Redondo Beach, who has their own district attorney and assistant district attorneys. One is dedicated to quality of life issues, which is just absolutely amazing. And that also reinforces sort of a South Bay fortress, if you will, against crime, because somebody who's committing a crime in Manhattan Beach may go to Redondo Beach or vice versa, Hermosa Beach. Hermosa Beach also gets their prosecution services from Redondo Beach. That, we did have an agreement hammered out. It was about $300,000 per year. It would just probably have a good impact on the crime because the criminals will know that you commit a crime here, you get caught, there are severe consequences. Because the directives from Gascon have not been rescinded. They have not been turned back. And we're closer now to his reelection in 2024, and maybe, he might allow us to do that. So I would like to at least ask my fellow council members
Other council business.
that we, I understand, but I
Well,
just
you made
want
a
to
motion,
make
so I just
sure
wanna make sure that wasn't.
that that we go ahead and we explore that hand in hand with this, and that way we bring the full force of law and order to this process. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and so, yes, you can definitely bring that up later on tonight, but it's not part of this particular agenda item.
Okay, Councilmember Lesser.
I wanted to thank Chief Johnson again for bringing this item forward, along with her senior staff as well as city staff in developing this proposal. Residents, businesses, all of us are concerned by the rising property crime in our city and want to give our police department the resources they need. Questions have been, for me, how do we arrive at the number? I'm grateful for the effort at an analytic framework, even though, as Chief Johnson indicated, there's no key science here. Obviously, as Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery mentioned, obviously, we all want to hire more police officers, but there are limitations as to how many can be hired. I think this is presented as a reasonable recommendation, and I'm supportive of it. My other concerns were, how do we pay for the additions? I look forward to the later presentation on how we might take advantage of that prior facility that was voted on by the public. Also anticipating a financial downturn, I did want to acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery was correct. There were positions that were left open as opposed to cutting. He's quite right about that. But what we had done as a council with Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery and Councilmember Hobart was we were able, when our financial position improved, to refill those positions where there had been recidivism in prior years. Another question was, how does this compare with the earlier proposal to bring in a private contracted police force? And I think almost all would agree that to spend $1.1 million for the private force just pales in comparison to getting the greater capacity that this broader proposal by Chief Johnson reflects. So I'm supportive of the recommendation. One thing that has not been fully discussed is recruitment, which was suggested by the mayor. I would be receptive for further conversation and curious what the maker of the motions would suggest as an increase for the rates that were last set on the bonuses and incentives in 2003. It is an important tool, so I'm receptive to hearing what that element of the motion would be, but otherwise I'm supportive. Thank you.
Is there any comment from the maker of the motion? There was the recommendation, staff, it's on page 6, page 152 of your agenda, the second full paragraph there. It says that staff recommends that the recruitment bonus be set at a discretionary 3% to 10% of the annual salary for the police officer step in which the candidate is hired. So that's the staff recommendation. Does the maker of the motion incorporate that?
Yes, Your Honor. I was remiss in not including that. I fully support that. Moving forward, I'll amend the motion. I can read it. If you want me to read the entire motion, I will read it.
No, that's okay.
All right.
For myself, I'm not going to belabor this.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, there was a second part to that, and that was the referral bonus, and staff was recommended that that be increased to a 5% of the annual salary of the police academy trainee.
Mayor Pro
That
Tem.
is in the next paragraph down.
Yes, Your Honor, that's fine. I had put the number in there, but I had 4,000. We want to use 5% as a fixed number. I'm fine with that as well.
The recommendation was to
For the
go with
lateral
percentage.
recruitment bonus, staff also recommends that council increase to 5% of the salary of the police academy trainee.
Referral, there's lateral, and then there's the other.
Accepted and noted, yes. to
That's
both.
part of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, that's
I'll
part of the
second
motion. It's already been seconded by Councilor Haworth.
The overall?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. There was a second motion.
No, Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery was clarifying his motion. For myself, like I said, I'm not going to belabor this. Let actions speak louder than words. There's never been a case in my time on council, the entire time on council, where I've turned down a request from the department. I'm not going to start now, so let's do this. Can we have a voting screen, please?
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Haworth,
Yep.
Mayor Napolitano.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
One of those mayors.
Make a comment?
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was remiss in not pointing out, Chief Johnson, I can't see you. I can, yes, just thank you and HR Director Jenkins for 20 new officers in the past 18 months. And those have been quality hires. So thank you for that. I want to make sure everybody heard that correctly, that I think we overwent that past part, but thank you for making it happen, and Director Jenkins making it happen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do want to recognize Lisa Jenkins and her staff because they were instrumental in putting together this plan and this report, and of course, continuing to hire as you've suggested. Our hiring will continue at the rapid pace that we've been doing it for the last many months. So it's pedal to the metal, and we'll fill these as soon as possible.
Excellent. All right. Moving on to item, unless someone wants a break.
Can we have a quick break? 5-minute break?
All right, 5-minute break requested by Councilmember Haworth.
Or me?
Who? No second, yep.
No second break?
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're losing folks right and left. Just kidding. Give another moment for Councilmember Franklin. All right. Actually, what was this? We're on to item 11 now. Consideration of Aquatics Center survey, summary report, and authorization for request for proposals for Begg Pool architectural and consultant services, including schematic design and cost estimates. Parks and Recreation Director Lehman.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This item will be presented by the Senior Recreation Manager, Melissa McCullum.
Okay. Coming in with a dramatic flurry.
So good evening, Mayor and City Council. We are here tonight to present findings from a statistically valid Aquatics Center survey that was conducted in October of 2022, as well as to discuss a strategy for development of options and cost estimates for repairing or replacing Begg Pool. Tim McLarney, who's president of True North Research, will present in-depth survey results in a moment, but a few highlights to share now. Not surprisingly, use of swimming pools is fairly common among Manhattan Beach households. 58% of residents and over 50% of families with youth use a swimming pool in some capacity throughout the year, and 64% said that they would use a new aquatic center for exercise. The majority of survey respondents indicated that they were either very interested or somewhat interested in a new aquatic center in Manhattan Beach, including 74% of households with youth. And although interest in a new aquatic center is widespread, this interest did not translate into widespread support for various strategies for funding a new aquatic center. After True North's presentation, staff will review council direction given at the joint Council Parks and Rec Commission meeting on January 9th and will make a recommendation for a next step. Special thanks to the Parks and Rec Commission Aquatics Subcommittee, including Lori McCarthy, Ken Weiner, and Stephen Duran, for their extensive research and outreach over the last 2 years that has really helped get us to this point. So Tim is going to be presenting his findings via Zoom.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Dr. Tim McLarney, president of True North Research, and we're a firm that over the last 20 years has specialized in working with cities and other public agencies and using surveys to develop a statistically reliable understanding of the communities and customers that they serve. To date, my business partner and I have worked on over 1,200 research studies for public agencies. I've also had the distinct pleasure of working with the city of Manhattan Beach on community surveys, and they've about a dozen of them dating back to 1998. And so tonight's presentation will cover the highlights of the survey that we recently completed. There is a full report that is available for those who are interested in the details. Let me go ahead and share my screen for you. Everybody got that? Okay. And I welcome questions from council as I go or at the end, whichever is your preference. So let me advance this. Okay, so before we talk about the results, I'll take a moment to review the methodology of the study, or how we went about conducting the survey. The methodology that we used for this study is very similar to the methodology that we've been using for the city's larger community satisfaction surveys over the last few cycles. We start out with a comprehensive database of Manhattan Beach households. Then we use what's called stratified random sampling to pull a random sample of those households. Although we're starting with a random sample, we also recognize that during data collection, sometimes you have different response rates for different types of households and individuals, and so we kind of monitor the demographics of our sample as we go to make sure that it's within certain tolerances of what we would expect based on census data for the city. One of the things that is a little different about this survey than our normal resident satisfaction surveys is that when we reach a respondent, an adult respondent, we ask them to speak on behalf of their household. The reason for that is because when you're thinking about a pool or recreation facilities, those are used not just by adults, they're also used by children and by teenagers. And so we wanted the adult who we could speak with to speak on behalf of their entire household. Once we had randomly selected households, we reached out using 3 different recruiting methods. We reach out by email, by text, and by telephone. The email and text have a link that will connect an individual to the survey site. Each one of those links has a unique number assigned to that particular respondent. That ensures that we protect this the website. Only Manhattan Beach residents who were invited to participate in the survey can do so.
Once a link was used, it couldn't be used again, so protected the integrity of the site. Respondents had the option of participating by telephone or at that secure password protected website. Now, we had actually set out with a goal of completing 400 surveys with Manhattan Beach households. We actually walked back in with about 574 completed surveys, so we had a nice response rate, actually a little bit better response rate than I was anticipating to the study. But because this was a random sample of 574 households, not a census of all of your households, it has what's known as a margin variety sampling. In this case, that's about plus or minus 4%. What that means is we can be 95% confident that the results we'll share with you tonight are within 4% of what we would have found had we spoken with all Manhattan Beach households. And then finally, the survey was conducted in October of this past year. Okay, so on the results, we started out the survey by just asking individuals the frequency with which they engage in each of the activities you see here at the bottom of this slide. One thing I will note when we were doing the invitation is we didn't sort of announce that this survey is going to be about aquatics or about swimming. We didn't want to create sort of a self-selection bias, and so we wanted to, both the invitation and the opening of the survey, to make it a little more general. That way we're not just speaking with pool enthusiasts, we're getting a random sample of all adults in the community. But as you can see here, this first question, which pertains to adults in Manhattan Beach, and how frequently they engage in each of the activities you see there on the bottom of that graphic, that the most common practice or activity they engage in is visiting a park or open space area. 80% of adult residents indicate that they do that at least once per month. That was followed by going to the gym for exercise at about 65% once per month. Visiting a recreation facility or community center, 38% once per month. Followed by using a pool for swimming, water programs, or water sports. About 31% reported doing that once per month. And then finally, the far right, pickleball, you had about 20% indicated that they do that at least once per month. When you focus in on the using a pool for swimming, water programs, or water sports, what we found is that overall, about 55% of adults do so occasionally, and about 20% do so weekly. Now, this next slide shows the exact same question, only this time we're focusing on youth, so children and teens, in terms of how frequently they engage in those activities. Here again, visiting a park or open space area was the most common. What we see is that using a pool for swimming, water programs, and water sports was among the various activities that we explored here, was more common among youth than it was among adults. You had 54% who indicated that the youth in their household do this at least once per month, and then followed by the other activities to the right. And zeroing in on the using a pool, 72% reported they do so occasionally, 36% indicate they do so weekly. Now this next slide is just a combination of the two. It looks at whether the percentage of households that have either at least one adult or one child or a teenager engaged in the activity. You see that using a pool for swimming, water programs, and water sports was reported by about 25% of households as something they do weekly, and 15% do so occasionally. So after that, for those individuals who were pool users, and they indicated they did so on the last slide, we simply asked them what type of pools they do this at. Do they do it at a pool at a private residence, or a pool that is open to the public, or both? And you can see here that about 16% do so exclusively at a private residence pool. You have about 23% who do so exclusively at a public pool. About 13% use both private and public pools. And so in combination, if you take those two sort of lighter blue slices, you have 36% of the households indicate that they are pool users, and they use a public pool at least part of the time in terms of when they use a pool. We went on for those individuals who indicated they use a public pool to ask them which public pools they actually use. This was a check all the applies kind of a scenario in terms of they got to look down this list for those who were online. And what you see is that Begg pool was mentioned most often. 41% of the public pool users mentioned that they use Begg Pool, 25% the Bay Club Pool, and then El Segundo, WAIVER, Aquatics Center at 21%, and the Club Pool or Manhattan Beach, Manhattan Country Club Pool at about 20%. So overall, Begg Pool was the most commonly mentioned. If you put these results in the context of all respondents, or all respondent households, not just those that use public pools, what you see is 15% of all public pool, of all respondents mentioned using Begg Pool. So that is those who use private pools, use public pools, those who don't use a pool for swimming at all. Again, about 50% of all resident households used Begg Pool. For respondents who indicated they didn't use a pool, period, whether it be a private pool or a public pool, we want to get a sense for why. And so we asked if there's a particular reason that their household doesn't use the pool for swimming, water programs, or water sports. And I think the big takeaway here, when you look at this list, is for the most part, is they don't have a particular reason or they don't engage in swimming. Very few respondents, only about 6%, mentioned the condition of a pool or availability of pool time, et cetera, as a reason for not swimming. So it wasn't for the condition of the facility or lack of access. Now, we step back at this point and asked all respondents, including those who either reported that they didn't swim at all, or they swam but they swam at private pools. We step back and ask all respondents whether in the past 2 years they or other members of their household had visited Begg Pool, and we clarified that this is the municipal pool for Manhattan Beach in case some didn't recognize the name. And you see overall that just over a quarter, 26%, indicated that yes, at least one member of their household had visited Begg Pool during the 2 years prior to the survey. The remainder indicated they did not during this period or were unsure. For respondents who visited Begg Pool, we asked them which types of activities they engaged in at Begg Pool. What you see here on the slide is we put the results in terms of the context of respondents. So you had about 3/4 who didn't visit Begg Pool during this period. That's the white portion of the bar. The green portion of the bar is the percentage that have visited Begg Pool and engaged in this particular activity during this period of time. You see that recreational water play is the most common activity, followed by lap swim and swim lessons, and then swim classes required by Manhattan Beach Middle School. Again, all respondents here factored into this question. We asked individuals based on their own experiences as well as what they may have heard from others, how would they rate Begg Pool on each of the dimensions you see on the left side of the graphic. And what you see here, there's a couple of patterns that are probably worth pointing out. Number one, there's a lot of gray on this slide, right? Gray means either not sure, that's the light gray, and prefer not to answer is the dark gray. And what this really reflects is that the high percentage of respondents who hadn't visited Begg Pool, didn't have any personal experience with the facility, and therefore didn't feel comfortable offering an answer in terms of rating it on these dimensions. The other thing that sort of jumps out is when you look at the other dimensions, there's only one dimension where the percentage who say excellent or good is greater than the percentage who say fair, poor, very poor. And that's the availability of parking. After that, when you look at the overall experience when visiting Begg Pool, the condition of the pool, availability of classes and programs, ability to get a swim lesson or swim lane, as well as the condition of the facilities, changing rooms, lockers, and bathrooms, the percentage who rated those things as either excellent or good is always outnumbered by the percentage that indicated as fair, poor, or very poor. And that was particularly the case in terms of the condition of the facilities, changing rooms, lockers, and bathrooms. Now, this slide that I'm showing here is among all respondents, including those who hadn't visited Begg Pool, and as you can see, a lot of them didn't feel comfortable that they could rank those dimensions. This next slide is the same question, only here we're isolating those individuals who, who had actually, their household had visited Begg Pool during this period. So it's either a respondent or somebody else in their household had visited Begg Pool. And what you see here is obviously, first of all, a lot more people have opinions about Begg Pool on each of these dimensions. But once again, what you find is that with the exception of availability of parking, the percentage who rated that dimension as fair, poor, very poor is still larger than the percentage who rated the dimension as excellent or good. And that was, again, especially the case for the item at the bottom there, the condition of the facilities, including changing rooms, lockers, and bathrooms. Now, we had that question that was buried in that other, the last slide, where we asked them to rate their overall experience when visiting Begg Pool. For those individuals, we then, once they gave us a rating, we asked them in an open-ended manner, is there a particular reason why you rated your overall experience as excellent or as good or as poor when visiting Begg Pool? This was an open-ended question. They could tell us in their own words what it was that was driving their answer. And we went back and looked at those verbatim responses and grouped them into the categories you see here. So to make it easy, anything that was a fair, poor, very poor answer, we agree, or a reason for having a poor answer, a poor rating for the overall experience is highlighted in red. The green is a positive reference in terms of the overall rating of their experience of the pool. And so what you see is, in terms of the negatives, the most common answer has something to do with facilities are old and needing updated. So about a quarter of the respondents who gave a poor rating for their overall experience mentioned that the facilities are old and need updated. That was followed by the pool's too small or too shallow at about 10%. Poor condition of pool water in the area, 9%. Limited availability of classes, 3 times, about 9%. So those are the main reasons for why folks would rate their experience as fair, poor, very poor. Among the positive respondents, those individuals made some sort of positive comment in general about the pool. Oh, I like the pool, something real generic. Among the more specific reasons for rating it positively, they mentioned that it's sort of inexpensive or affordable to use that facility. They mentioned the warm, clean water, and they also mentioned the staff and trainers as a reason for providing positive rating. Now, among public pool users who indicated they don't use Begg Pool, we also asked them, is there a particular reason why you don't use Begg Pool? Because they seem to be in the market for a public pool, right? But they're not choosing to use Begg. About 30% didn't really have a particular reason in mind. Another 19% said they just hadn't heard of it. Only about a third of these individuals cite the pool condition or the availability of that pool as being a reason for not using Begg Pool, right? And you see that kind of in the middle of the graph there. References to limited availability of classes and free swim time, the facilities are old and updating, pools too small, shallow, etc. Okay, so at this point in the poll, we asked them a bit about what their swimming activities were. We asked them their experiences at Begg Pool and to rate Begg Pool on a variety of different dimensions. It's at this point in the survey where we introduced the concept of a potential new aquatic center. And so to do this, we first gave them a little history lesson on Begg Pool. We indicated that Begg Pool was built in 1940, about 82 years ago. And although it's been renovated multiple times, the pool has reached an age where it may be more cost effective to replace the pool with a new aquatic center. If the city were to build a new aquatic center, how interested would your household be in using the aquatic center? And you can see here about 56%, a little more than half of Manhattan Beach respondents indicated that their household would be either very interested or somewhat interested in using a new aquatic center if it were built. Another 11% has said slightly interested, and about a quarter who were not interested. When we went on and asked individuals what types of facilities or amenities they think should be priorities for inclusion in the pool, each one of these items we asked them to rate it on a scale of high priority, medium priority, low priority, or not a priority. We also introduced a little competition into this question so that they didn't just say ratings out 40. And what you see is among the various features and amenities, the 35-meter pool for swimming laps, swim competitions, and water sports was the highest rated priority for the new facility, followed by a shallow pool for swim lessons, water aerobics, water therapy, and children's programming. And then thirdly, a wet classroom for teaching CPR, water safety, junior lifeguards, and swim lessons. After asking about the amenities that they'd be most interested in, we also followed up
with a question of if a new aquatic center is built, do you expect that one or more members of your household would participate in each of the activities that you see here on this slide? Swimming for exercise was by far the most popular item, and the one that they expected to participate in most often at 64%, followed by recreational water play and therapy, senior classes, water aerobics, about 38% said yes, we'll be doing some of that. So the final substantive question of the survey got to the issue of funding. We've already measured their activities, we've measured their ratings of Begg Pool, we've measured their interest in a new aquatic center. We went on to ask them about potential funding mechanisms, 3 of them. And so we preface this by saying building a new aquatic center will require additional funds. And as I read the following alternatives, I'd like to know which options you are willing to support and which you oppose. And then we tested those individually. You see here that by far the most palatable of the 3 options there was increasing fees paid by those who use city aquatics and recreation facilities and programs. 71% of respondents we spoke with indicated they would support that strategy for raising funds to build an aquatic center. When it came to the other 2, which were both special taxes, one was increasing local property taxes by $140 per year, that's the middle column, and then the far right is increasing local sales tax by 0.25%. We see there's obviously a lot lower appetite for those 2 alternative funding options, both of them sitting at around 28% support. If they were tax measures that were isolated to funding this aquatic center, that makes them what's known as a special tax under California law, it would require 2/3 support to that level. So this final slide shows how support for each of those funding alternatives varies based on whether their household had used Begg Pool in the past 2 years. And what's interesting is on the far left, that whether you have used Begg Pool in the last 2 years or not, the percentage who indicated that they would support increasing fees paid by those who use city aquatics and their programs to fund the aquatic center at similar support levels. And I find that interesting mainly just because it sort of makes sense that if you were a user, you kind of have an incentive and you're willing to pay that extra additional fee. If you're a non-user, you know that it's not going to cost you anything, and so you're willing to support that alternative too. When you get to the 2 tax alternatives there, what you do see is that the users of Begg Pool were about twice as likely to be willing to support a tax measure of some sort in order to fund the facility. But even among users, you're coming in 20+% shy of the 2/3 that we required to fund this. I will also say that there's a 4th alternative here that we did not test in the survey, and so we don't have any data to speak to it one way or the other, and that's the sort of the notion of a public-private partnership of some sort. Just the details of those tend to be a little more detailed than what sometimes you can convey in the space of the survey and get an accurate reading. So there are other alternative funding options that weren't necessarily tested as part of the survey. And so that is the last slide in my presentation. I welcome questions from council if there are any at this point.
Council, questions?
Nope, none from anyone.
Okay. No questions right now, thank you.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
That's kind of mean.
Can I just get a clarifying? Sorry.
Oh, we have a,
That's a lot of data to go
we have
through.
a semi-question here.
Yeah. So the second, thank you, by the way. So the last slide was aquatic center funding options by Begg Pool use in past 2 years. That's why the delay. I was trying to find the one slide that showed what was the percentage of the respondents that said they used Begg Pool in the last 2 years. Was it?
25%.
Say that.
25.
25%. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none.
Part 2. So as a reminder, at the joint meeting on January 9th, Council gave direction to commissioners and staff, including to prioritize the Begg Pool site over other locations,
to include 2 pools in the proposed design, one 25-meter shallow pool and one 35-meter competition pool, to determine projected project cost, including pool and site renovations, as well as anticipated operating cost for a new facility. Parks and Rec Commission was to return to City Council for additional discussion about development of a 501c3 and potential public-private partnerships to help fund the Begg Pool improvements. And council representatives would initiate dialogue with the Manhattan Beach Unified School District at a city school ad hoc committee meeting, as Begg Pool is owned by the Manhattan Beach Unified School District and operated by the city. So based on additional council direction at that meeting, a follow-up meeting with planning, building, public works, parks and rec, and commission representatives was held on-site in January to discuss project complexities in detail when Begg Pool is renovated or replaced. One requirement, if a new aquatic center is built, is accessibility for the entire site from public right-of-ways. So that would include roads and sidewalks, in addition to the pools, the buildings, and parking, as there's currently only the one-way road into the parking lot by Begg Pool. Other potential challenges include additional parking requirements, access to utilities in the park, and Department of State architect requirements due to the site being owned by the school district. All of these details and cost estimates, plus the work required and related cost for improvement of the pool, such as the pools, the mechanical systems, the building systems, the pool deck and seating areas, the restroom and locker rooms, and the building shell and finishes, all of those are needed in order to determine those overall projected project cost. So to move forward, staff is recommending a similar process to how El Segundo is renovating their 1940s Eurosari swim stadium, better known as the Plunge, after decades of efforts to either repair or replace the indoor pools. In 2021-2022, they spent $130,000 for a needs assessment, development of conceptual design, and detailed estimates of probable cost for required, essential, and enhanced improvement options. During the last year, they've spent approximately $1 million for environmental review, as well as development of comprehensive engineering, architectural, and aquatics design documents that are necessary to go out to bid for construction. The El Segundo City Council recently directed staff to move forward with soliciting construction bids, and the current estimate for their pool and building renovations is $11 million. So due to the complexities of the Begg Pool site, as well as best practices for large-scale municipal construction projects, staff does recommend that the City Council approve staff development of a request for proposals, or an RFP, for Begg Pool architectural and consultant services. The scope of services for this next phase would include site analysis, needs assessment, schematic and conceptual design, and preparation of estimates for probable cost for Begg Pool repairs or replacement, as well as those related site improvements. So if approved, staff would return to City Council for funding for those architectural and consultant services as part of the budget process for fiscal year 2023-2024. So we appreciate consideration of our recommendation. I do want to point out that Director Lehman, Senior Recreation Supervisor Jesus Sandoval, who oversees the city's aquatics facilities and programs, as well as Parks and Recreation Chair Lori McCarthy and others are here if you have questions for any of us.
Okay, any questions of staff?
I have one, Your Honor. Actually, two.
MPT.
Thank you, sir. So I'm not sure if you know the answer. Maybe you do at the top of your head, since you mentioned cost numbers and timing. Do you know how long it took El Segundo from the beginning to the end to actually build their aquatic center? Not the one they're renovating, but the one that's already built. How long it took them from the process idea to when they actually constructed it?
I do not have that information on me. I know Lori May she did a lot of research on the construction of that project.
Okay, I'll hold until she comes to talk.
Okay.
I know she's going to come down later. And the second question was, do you or anyone know at staff level know, and I just thought it when you mentioned costs, how much the city of Manhattan Beach has put into the maintenance / upgrading, updating a pool, Begg Pool in the last 20 years? So if you don't know the answers, come back.
$400,000 in the
20?
for renovation, but not for overall maintenance.
Okay. Maybe we'll save that question for later on, but
Okay.
I'll stop there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll open up to public comment then.
Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Lesser.
One first.
Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. Staff, so Melissa, you want to come back to the podium?
Yes, absolutely.
Councilmember Lesser, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I have one general question perhaps for Parks and Rec staff, but perhaps this is really more for our finance director. And that is, how do we avoid getting an architectural design or plan through an RFP that we can't afford to build? I mean, putting it another way is, how do we begin putting aside more funding for a project that we know is going to cost, a considerable sum?
Good evening again, Steve Shrellian, Finance Director. Thank you for your question. It would be, again, reviewing all different funding aspects that we have at our availability. We can look at increase of sales tax. The city doesn't have a utility users tax. There's a number of different ways that we can see what revenues we can generate with the options that we have. So.
And I'm sorry, I haven't looked at it in a while, but is there CIP funding that has been put aside for a pool for this future inevitability, or has it really been put aside for the continual band-aids that, as Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery suggested in his question, the city has been paying for over many years for this facility that's well beyond its useful life?
It would be the operations that have been put aside in the CIP and not monies for future renovation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councilor Franklin?
Yes, can I just get some clarification of the dimensions of the pools? Just using Miracosta as an example, is that 35 meters long?
Anybody? Anybody?
Hold on.
Good evening. Jesus Sandoval, Senior Recreation Supervisor. I'm sorry, repeat your question. Do you want the dimensions for Begg Pool or Miracosta?
No, Miracosta.
Miracosta?
Because that's a competition pool. I think it's somewhere around 35 meters.
Correct. Yeah, I believe it's about 38 or so meters. They use it for 30 meters for water polo, but there is a little section that is shallow, and they also use it for cool down. So
Okay,
it's
but-
about 12 lanes.
But for swimming competition, it's basically a 35, because the recommendation is to get a 35-meter competition pool. Is that what we have already at Miracosta?
That is correct. Very similar, yes. I don't
Okay.
know exact dimensions, but it will be
All
very
right.
similar.
And then how long is the big pool right now? I think it's 25 yards.
It's 25 yards by,
Well, I just wanted the length.
it's 6 lanes, yes.
Yeah.
6 lanes, 25 yards.
Yeah, 6 lanes, 25 yards. Okay, great. 25 yards. Okay, and so boy, so much to this.
We're going to do,
I think I'm good.
you have
Yeah.
questions for, okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, we're going to open up to public participation then. 2-minute time limit. Come on down for those who want to speak on this item.
Good evening, Council. Ken Weiner from second term Commissioner for Parks and Recreation. Lori and I are going to tag team on this, but we want to frame this in terms of the work plan that we brought to you in January. So as part of the Parks Master Plan, which we completed in 2020, the Commission formed various subcommittees around the specific projects that the Council agreed to see what their worth was and if the Commission could explore and put more focus on them. One of those was the Aquatics Subcommittee, whose mandate was to explore what could be done to either renovate Begg Pool, which, as has been said over and over again, is on its last rites, useful life as well, or to create a new aquatic center somewhere in the city. Over the past 2 years, the subcommittee has done extensive due diligence analyzing the state of the Begg facility, meeting with management, as Melissa indicated, on what newer aquatic facilities within the South Bay, learning about preferred practices, layouts, equipment at the aquatic centers, and speaking with others who have finished and financed and fundraised for these kind of aquatic centers. We then reported back to Council in, as I said, January of 2022. At that time, Council authorized the initiation of a statistically valid survey, which you just heard from Tim. Thank you, Tim. The numbers that you were asking for in terms of the need for a pool, we think are substantiated by what he provided. So the next step, which Lori will bring to you now, is to talk about how we've sort of progressed along in this effort.
Good evening. My name is Lori McCarthy, and I am the current chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, and also with Ken, I'm heading the Aquatics Subcommittee. As you know from the survey results, we learned that a large cross-section of Manhattan Beach residents use pools, that families with youth under 18 use them even more, that classes for seniors, master swim, recreational swimming, and MBMS swimming classes are all important to our residents. We also know that we have 150 youth on our local swim team, and that all of our programming in every season is spoken for within minutes during our online signups. In fact, demand far exceeds the supply of available programming. We simply have a very, very aging pool facility and only one 25-yard, 6-lane pool to meet the needs of 35,000 residents. It is not enough water to meet the needs of all those who would like to use it. At our most recent presentation to Council last month, as part of our 2023 Parks Master Plan update, our subcommittee indicated that it would like to take the next steps to determine the likely cost of new pools at Begg and to arrive at appropriate schematics. We also indicated that, like so many cities across the country and now in the South Bay, we would like to create a 501c3 for tax-exempt fundraising so that a true public-private partnership would be possible for this and other Parks and Rec projects going forward. In conclusion, our commission and our subcommittee strongly support moving forward with an RFP to obtain detailed cost estimates and layout schematics for a new aquatic center at Begg, one that would primarily be for recreational purposes for Manhattan Beach residents. We want to be able to show council what the site would look like with new pools and new ancillary support buildings such as locker rooms, and we want to have appropriate cost estimates for the pools and for the required surrounding infrastructure upgrades. We hope council will be supportive of an RFP to get this essential information. Thank you.
Thank you.
And separately, I have answers to a bunch of the questions you asked. So it's up if you want me to answer them.
If there are questions.
Yeah, I just got another question is, what would you say, it might be a difficult one, what would you say is the overall percentage of the pool use by MBMS programming? Like for the kids at the school? I mean, you know, if you've got X amount of
MBMS
hours in a week and this, that.
I would argue that almost all of it, there's some free swim, but a lot of it is MBMS programming. I don't know the specific number for that. I would defer to Parks and Rec Department for that. But it's not just students. There's a swim team. There's scheduled master swim. There are summer program classes.
But as far as MBMS,
as far as MBMS, I don't know. Oh, you mean the classes? I don't know.
Yeah, the classes, the use. I mean, they don't, you know, they probably don't use it during the weekend for the classes. So just an idea, 40%, 30%?
Yeah, correct.
overall?
So the school uses the pool for their PE classes 2 semesters. In the fall, they use it from August till mid-November, end of November. And then start again either the end of March, beginning of April, all the way until June. So there's a section in the winter they don't use it, and they don't use it in the summer or on the weekends. So that's when we use it. We use it after 3 o'clock.
So again, just a number, if you're, we're not going to hold you to it, but just an idea. I mean, is it 30%, 60%? In the middle there?
Let's just start with we don't know. And let's take that question and come back with that at another time. Because there's no point in guesstimating here. If you want that certain information, we don't have it. You know, we don't even know what the dimension of some of the pool is. So let's get that. Staff should know. Lori, thank you.
Do you want me to answer the question?
Go ahead.
I had a question on staff or Lori, but what?
Well, I just want to know who's answering the questions here. Because this isn't a, I'm a bit, this is not a presentation by the commission. Okay, so if there are answers to the questions that you have, then great, come downtown. But, you know, I want staff to have these answers. So when you make a presentation on the pool, we should know the dimension of the pool. If we're talking about pool in Manhattan Beach, we should know what the dimensions of the Maricosta pool is. So let's get that for future reference. Are there questions that you have, Councilmember Howard?
Yeah, and I know that, well, it would be questions for staff. I have 2 questions that came up. Okay. All right, so and I think this would be for the city attorney, would the commissioners or the subcommittee or the group need our direction or our approval to form a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no independent authority, but if it's going through the school, it could be a different situation, but with our staff, it has to be the city council.
directing to form, like, if a
Yes.
group of citizens formed our own 501c3, that wouldn't fly? That's what I'm asking.
Well, they could,
How
but
can
it'd
we
be like
stop that?
volunteers. It could be like the Scout House or some
Right,
other
okay.
joint venture.
And then this is a question, I guess, for the Parks and Rec staff. So it just triggered by Councilmember Franklin's question. Do we ever empty out our pool and then refill it?
Yes, we do. We do that every year in the winter.
In the winter?
Correct.
This is a wild idea. I'm just going to throw it out here now. There are some communities that, when they're going to empty the pool, they have a number of slots, and dog owners can reserve those slots, and they come and they swim, and then they empty out the pool and clean it out, and it's just a really fun thing. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay,
Let's
glad,
build the
glad
pool
we're
first.
focusing here. Okay.
It was
What do we
just
have
triggered.
next? Questions? Mayor Pro Tem, you had questions?
More of a question to my colleagues. I'm gonna hold off on staff. Nothing else.
Okay. Other speakers on this item? Do we have anyone by Zoom? Okay, back to council then.
I'll start us off, Your Honor.
Okay.
I appreciate reading the report, and I circled one page, 22, if you all look at page 22 of the True North survey. There's a graph there, figure 20, interest in new aquatic center. What jumps out at me, and probably jumped out at everyone, 25.4% are not interested. That's a huge number to look at. Automatically, 25% of people, if you put your faith in the survey, aren't interested. Okay, you're going to be some percentage aren't interested, no matter what you put out there, right? 25% is one big number. The second biggest number I looked at was somewhat interested, 20.7. So if you believe the data and believe the physical survey, you're already fighting 45% of the residents, if you're assuming that number, aren't either A, interested or lukewarm interested. So we have to overcome that kind of skeptic off the bat. It's not like a library, much different concept here, or a skate park, much different. So I want everybody to read the same thing I'm reading, make sure they get the same process. And we just heard tonight discussion over adding $1.5 million to our budget for hiring officers and what we're going to do going forward. So then you forgot about the word Scout House Community Center. That's somewhere in this queue of events we're paying for. So I'm just making sure we all see the list here. Police officers, Scout House Community Center, pool. So if we get down that road, I'm not saying we should go down the road. A, we prioritize everything. And before we could jump off the end of the pool board here, we all find out what it's going to cost, even for the actual RFP, consulting services. If that number is a huge number, and we're tied to that number, that's money we may be throwing away for, it may not carry the day. And forget about the word recession anywhere in that conversation. If things go south, and I'm not saying they're going to go south, but they do go south, we're going to put the full brakes on like we saw in 08, 09. And we're going to pump the brakes and go, you know what? We're going to focus on Chief Johnson's requests, and we're going to hold everything else back in the queue. That means the Aquatic Center, that means the Scout House, whatever's going to sit in the queue will wait. So this is not the high priority item in my head. It's on my wish list, not my need list. It's on my wish list. If everything goes right, no recession, no bumps. We find money through a raised TOT Bruce to pay for our police, and we get money in the private sector to pay for the Scout House, and we can all make both things happen. Fantastic. We're not tapping into huge reserves for this, but if the group can look at the public-private partnership part of it, great. I'm okay with that part of it, and even better, I'd say if that faith or that drive is there, and Laura and her friends are doing that, let them pony up like we do for our underground districts. Pony up the money to get this thing started. Look at RFPs and say, what's the total cost going to be? That way, A, the city keeps its powder dry, keeps our money safe until we know what the answer is going to be, and whether Melissa's right, maybe it's 11 million, maybe it's 28 million. No one knows the number yet, but I want to see us committing till we know exactly what it is, get past the recession if there is one, make sure we got money in the bank with our PD, And then the Scout House, which was there first, in all fairness, been sitting there for 3 or 4 years now. And then we look at the pool option. So I'm not against the pool option. I'm against the priority of the school, of the aquatic center, and knowing exactly what it will be before I put my stamp on it and say I agree. So I'll stop there, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilor Haworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at page 22 of the True North, I see it a little differently than you do. I like to usually, well, when I've looked at these reports, you put the very interested with the somewhat interested. So that gets you to 55%. The slightly interested goes with the not interested, right? So I see it a little differently. But I understand the, caution around finances. So, I'm just saying, I see that differently. It's an 82-year-old pool, right? And we have, I think the $400,000 number, I want to say, is not quite 20 years of maintenance, but we're going to be putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into that pool over the next 5 years anyway, at some point. I believe, my belief would be, once we do the RFP, and it is a cash outlay, then we go back to the community and we say it's $11 million and we have this nonprofit. It's $28 million and we do, whatever the concept is, whatever the reality is. And I think that, frankly, I would go beyond like a survey at that point and do some community engagement exercises at Jocelyn, where you have people. The one thing that I remember from the Facilities Strategic Master Plan, and this is not that concept, but the people who are interested in a pool are really interested in a pool. So it's just a little bit of a deceptive, I think, result. So I believe, or I want to approve or direct staff to go back, create the RFP, come back to the mid-year budget with how much that will cost, right? That's, I think that was the direction, that we direct them to create an RFP and come back to the mid-year to tell us how much those contracts would cost? Or is it that we're approving $300,000 and $1 million? She's gonna clarify that, but we may have to hold off on it for a couple of years if there's a recession, but when we have to have that information. We have to have what is possible. And we have to start. This is a project. We are a community, a coastal community that prides ourselves on athletic, not just athletic ability, but athletic accomplishment and Olympians. And my God, we tout our athletic bona fides all the time. And we have a lot of kids and we have a lot of people that need this pool. So I don't even swim. I can't swim. And so, I don't need, I know, isn't that weird? But I still want this pool. Anyway.
For the dogs.
For the dogs. That was a great idea. Anyway, so I wanted to, Melissa, did you want to comment on what
I did want to clarify that our recommendation is just to create the request for proposals and then solicit those proposals and bring those back to you.
Right.
The other piece I want to clarify is we could write that RFP in such a way that we're asking for different levels of upgrades. So
right.
What do we need to do just to meet code and for safety? What are those essential things to improve that community members' experience of the pool? And then what are the costs for the full vision of the two pools?
That's
which would
really
give
great.
you some options. Would also, it is an 80-year-old pool, so there is work that needs to be done on regardless on heater, on plumbing, if you want to continue to operate that pool. So
That's great. And just one more comment, because a resident wrote in, why did you have any discussion on the site and how many pools? And we did at our joint Parks and Rec Council Commission. We had discussion, and that's why the staff report reflects those conditions. Look at the Begg pool site, look at potentially 2 pools, right. So we discussed that, gave them some framework to go with. So I say we give staff the direction to, develop an RFP and see what they come back with. We need to take the steps to see if it's possible.
Okay, Councilmember Lesser?
I want to echo Councilmember Haworth, and if that was a motion, Councilmember Haworth, I
Sure.
would second it.
Thank you.
And namely, in addressing Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery's really good points, I'd say this. The facts are we have this 82-year-old pool that is heavily utilized, and to the extent we don't plan for its succession, we're just going to continue to expend ever-increasing funds that could be better spent on planning for its replacement on just maintenance. So I support also what Mr. Cullum just suggested in terms of having these two options. One, what would be the design and what the schematics and all the pieces that would be involved in what I think the council and the commission would most want, and the community would most want, these two pools. But in the alternative, to the extent that funding is limited, what would be involved in really updating it, upgrading it, and making it at least have a few more years of useful life than it currently does.
Okay, thank you.
But clearly, last comment is we are going to have a clash. There's only so much in the form of capacity for our capital improvement funds. And to the extent we're looking at a scout house as well as a pool, we're going to have to make some really difficult choices. That's all.
Councilor Franklin?
Yes, thank you. I have used that facility so long, I might just have to recuse myself. I love Begg Pool. It was a godsend to my growing family. The staff is wonderful. They do this birthday party there that my kids are just 1 year apart, so we would have this huge birthday party there. The staff, I gauged my fatherhood as how far how much time I could spend sitting and not actually, being out there standing up playing with the kids. The staff took care of everything. So it's a great facility for that. My children also went through MBMS and the school and the swim programs there. They learned how to swim there. I agree with a couple of the comments that you can't really learn to swim in the ocean. By the time we hand them off to junior guards, they should have some idea of how to swim. As I got older, personally, I've used it for lap swimming. I remember it was 71 laps for a mile. That's why I knew it was 25 yards. But I just wanted to verify that. And then, so I just want to sort of go up about 30,000 feet. So you got this need, okay? The greater need is for children. That's why I asked the question about the middle school. What % of the time is programmed with middle school programming? It's done with PE classes. It's done with the Dolphins, I believe, the Dolphins, the MBMS Dolphin swim team. It's used by adults for lap swimming. I've seen older adults in there doing water aerobics. So it's going to be so expensive to build a 35-meter pool there and a 25-meter pool there. And the last page of Tim's presentation, his slide, page 19, says it all. I mean, right there. It's 74 or 71% of those people who have used the pool in the last 2 years, which has only been 72% have not visited Begg Pool in the last 2 years, so 28% have. So those 28% say they want the fees to be paid by those people who are using it. All right. That's going to be a lot of money for those user fees. I don't think it's practical in a park and recreation program to charge that amount of money to people, or at least that's what they're, when you finally present to them and say it's going to cost you this much to use these pools, they're going to say no. So really we're competing in the realm of private pools out there. You're competing. If you've got a child that really has excelled, you've seen that they really want to swim and they have the desire, you're going to find a swimming program somewhere. Part of something I did during the meeting was, the Wiseburn pool complex. I mean, that's a beautiful complex. Don't get me wrong. And it costs, what, $12 to $15 million, maybe even less. I don't know. But that's 10 minutes and only 3.4 miles away. I'm going to take my child there and get into that program, even though I'm not a resident. There's the, I don't know if it's the refurbished swim center stadium. That's 3.5 miles away, 10 minutes. the El Segundo Bay Club is where I did a lot of swimming initially, the indoor pool. That's 8 minutes and 2.5 miles away. I'm going to get my child into that pool. Okay? I don't think we need to build or replace Begg with tournament-style, higher quality kind of pool. I do, however, agree to the second pool. I don't think it needs to be 25 meters, but one of the downsides of Begg pool is that, help me with the depth, is the depth uniform, I think, 3 feet across, or is it a little deeper?
Correct. It's about 3 to 3.5. So
Yeah.
3.5 on the deep part, 3 feet in the shallow
Right,
part.
and so my kids at age 4 and 5 are like this, trying to stand and trying to breathe, in that pool. So if we want them to start younger than 5 or 6, then I think we should have a shallow pool. Doesn't have to be as elaborate, doesn't have, but something where the infants, toddlers, and, younger kids can go ahead and swim and get used to the water and do, and swim around. Because that is one of the drawbacks of Begg is this depth level. So they really can't, you as a parent, and this violates my fatherhood, technique, like I said, I would have to be in that pool with that child to make sure when they're, when they're 5, 6, to make, to help them swim and things like that. So I think we can optimize what we have. I agree, it's 80 years old, it's going to need to be replaced, but I just think we got to find that medium where it's affordable to the users, because we've seen here, you're not going to get a bond measure, you're not going to get a parcel tax necessarily to pay for this. You could get private, public-private, but that's going to be a long way to get that money, and then the annual maintenance, it's going to be a lot more than like a building like the Scout House. It's going to be, the pool, you got to clean up after the dogs after we switch the water. So I would say narrow it more in scope, build it what it is. It's to introduce younger children to the joys of swimming and the safety of swimming, and then they can go off and do very well at Costa, right? Where it is set up for tournaments, and like Orgo ocean swimming, and be a surfer, and junior guard and all that sort of stuff. So, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Haworth, you had?
A couple points maybe to Councilmember Franklin. I see it as I hear what you're saying about a pool to teach younger children the joy of swimming, but I believe we have to look at it as a community-wide pool. And you talk about you could go to these other places to swim, but capacity is, the whole community is impacted. It's not just our town, that there's need for water. And I hear what everyone is saying. I'm not saying that we absolutely should still go for a bond or a tax. I see those numbers, but let's understand that these are numbers based on little to no education, little to no schematics. This is not the final answer, and I don't think anyone could ever suggest that you could support a pool, build a pool, let alone operate it based on user fees alone. That's just not a thing. I mean, a public pool, that's just not a thing. So I just, it's expensive. It's going to be hard. But I just wanted to clarify those points. I still, I think looking at different scopes may be possible. Like if they come back and they say X, then we say, well, let's go down to X minus 5. So, but, those are just wanted to clarify those things.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguilar.
Thank you, Honor. Clarifying comments. I just want to make sure everybody understands my earlier comments here. I'm not saying that Begg Pool is not an incredible resource. It is. It's a pool we don't own, however, and I haven't heard anybody here tell me that they've talked to the school district and said, sure, go ahead and do what you want. So we need to bring back this conversation to say, has the school district said yes? Since they own the land, we need to make sure that our landlord is saying yes to all of this, and nowhere in this report has it said MBUSD has given us the green light. And second, the next question is, when it comes back, talk about the question I asked Melissa, do we know what the costs have been over the past 20 years for maintenance / upgrades, updating? There's got to be some number that we know through Public Works. Someone knows the answer to that. And following behind that, what did it take from conception to completion for the Weisburn pool is a good example. It took them years. It wasn't just happen overnight. I know that Richard Lundquist had a lot to do with that, Joe, about donating money. We have our own Richard Lundquist in our city here, but I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there's a resource. And remember, everybody, the Scout House told us years ago they had money to pay for the Scout House. And we get to the end of the day, that hasn't happened, not through any fault of them. I'm saying conditions didn't happen that. So before we count on private money, we need to know all this before we spend money somewhere else. The priorities are priorities. Public safety, police. Then we have a hard discussion, as Councilor Alessia discussed, about does the Scout House stay in front? Does it stay behind? Can they be simultaneous? Do we have the recession issue? So I'm not going to go for any of that until I know exactly where we stand, who's approved what, where do we stand legally, all that point going forward. Then we have an honest discussion about, do we pay for this RFP and it may go nowhere, or we stand still at that point in time. So I'm okay with the step of going forward, but I'm not committing past that point. I know exactly what we're going to pay for, what it's going to be. Can anybody set up privately? Because that way we're not sitting on the hook that we've been in other projects, all of a sudden the bottom falls out. So I'll stop there.
What did Mark Twain say? There are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. And so you can read into this survey what you want. We asked for it. But, you know, looking at page 11, 42% no pool use. We're talking about a lot of subsets after that, just to get to that 25%. And as the our survey folks said, there's a lot of gray. A lot of gray space in there, a lot of, in the graphs. There's a lot of gray, which is a lot of not sures and unknowns and everything else. And I think that speaks to Begg pool itself. I think it speaks to the fact that it's utilized well by the people who know and use it, but not by those who haven't even bothered to know that it's there. And maybe that's our fault, maybe it's their fault. Whoever's fault it is, the failure of it, in part, I think, it lends itself to its location. Tucked back behind a bunch of other stuff with a one-lane road makes it very difficult to get to, which we would have to upgrade. And I'd loathe to spend a bunch of money on upgrading access to the pool when what we want to do is put money into the pool itself and improve that. And so I'm going to offer up a third alternative to consider, because we are also entering into discussions with the school district regarding our field maintenance agreement, which they might look at this as an opportunity to squeeze us more if they're watching right now. But that's a different discussion. I would like us to take a look at another site, and that is the facilities maintenance yard that the school district has there at the corner of Peck and Manhattan Beach Boulevard, and see if we cannot switch that for where the current setup of Begg Pool is now. They can keep the one-lane road and run their maintenance in and out of that as an option. I'd like, at least for discussion purposes, if we do an RFP, to consider that location, because then that gives us visibility and along the well-traveled road, where folks will be able to see it and they'll say, we have a pool, we have two pools, we can use those. You know, we're never going to raise enough money through user fees to pay for something like this. And so, you know, that to me begs a wider discussion of funding for CIP projects in general. It can't just be this project. I have little to no faith in a private partnership being the solution here. It can be a contributor but not a solution, because the problem, as we've seen often enough, is that we'll say, here's what it costs. It costs $11 million. Fundraise for that. Then we fundraise. It takes 2-3 years to fundraise. By the time that 3 years passes, that cost is going to be $15 to $16 million. And then they're going to look at us to make up the difference, and we haven't budgeted for it. We really need to do better at funding infrastructure projects in Manhattan Beach, not just this project. Again, we have constituencies for everything. Does everyone in Manhattan Beach want a pool? No. Does everyone in Manhattan Beach use the Little League fields? No. Does everyone use the soccer fields? No. The tennis courts? No. Wide swaths of this population do not use those individual facilities, but we have them because enough do use them that it's a benefit to everyone. And for that reason, I think we really need to seek out a funding source for the long term. One of those things, well, this survey showed a low support for a sales tax increase. I do think that a sales tax increase, we're 0.25% below what the state allows because we're tied to LA County. And we've got several sales tax rates that are levied on top of the base rate, and that's for transportation, that's Metro. We got about a 0.25% tax left. And that's on top of the 0.25% for homeless funding that the voters approved. And so, several communities around us have voted in favor of reserving that 0.25% for themselves if the county goes after that for them. So rather than giving out our 0.25% sales tax, we should be keeping that 0.25% sales tax because they'll do it. It's a trigger tax. If LA County goes for it, then actually we would go on the ballot and that 0.25% would go for us instead of LA County. And that's what really we should be looking for in the future for these things. And we should be looking for the 0.25% sales tax or utility user tax. I don't like utility user tax. I really don't want to go there. But we need long-term funding for all our needs. We have limited resources and endless needs. And there are wants and there are needs, but for parks and recreation, for our infrastructure projects, we need long-term funding. We can't rely on whatever scraps are left over after the budget year. And that's what we've relied on in the past. We need an ongoing, we set aside a portion of the parking rate increase several years back. That was one of the things I pushed for. 50 cents of the increase goes to public works projects. This is one of those projects. Jocelyn Center, replacement for heights, improvements to Polywog, improvements to any of our parks, Marine Park, baseball fields, whatever it is. I mean, Dorsey is looking shabby out there. We need to fix that place up. We need a long-term funding source for our public infrastructure. And we need to start looking at this as part of that solution. And because it's not going to fund itself, we've got to provide funding for it. So I'm fine with going for the RFP. I would like to include an assessment of the school's facility maintenance yard and see what a switch might entail there so we can put more money towards the actual space itself and have access. Hold on. And then leave it to the Finance Subcommittee to come up with some alternative funding sources for long-term capital improvement projects. This would be one of those things. And then it's up to council to prioritize the spending after that. Councilmember Howard.
No, I was just going to say, is that a friendly amendment to the motion?
Yes.
I would accept.
Yes.
And I really, really value those comments. Those excellent. Well said.
Councilmember Lesser. I can't, you're on mute, Councilmember.
Thank you. I agree. I would accept the friendly amendment. The only comment I would make is my recollection is the school district did develop a master plan and they did have a plan of use for that corner. And maybe another part of this might be for the schools committee, on which I believe, Mayor, you said, have an opportunity just to review what the school's plans are. But I'm receptive to the amendment now to keep this moving forward in terms of exploring a project on that corner lot. That's the will.
Yeah, and we all know how master facilities use plans go, so I'm not really worried about that. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Mayor Napolitano?
Yes.
Councilmember Haworth?
Yep.
Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. All right. Item L, City Council requests and reports, including AB 1234 reports. Mayor Pro Tem
I should probably
Montgomery.
go first, Your Honor. Well, I was fortunate enough to attend the mayor's place as a former mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We've been members for a long time. I think this is 1975, Bruce. We've been members of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And what this is, people haven't been there before, it is the mayors from all over the country, as small as El Segundo, all the way up to biggest cities you can think of, New York, Dallas, Boston, they're all there. And of course, California led the way with 42 of the mayors that were there in attendance. It's one-on-one time with everybody. I'm not going to read the whole list because the book has got 400 of these. Let me just read the top 10 that I thought were the most prevalent to listen to. And unfortunately, the first I'm going to read is the one that happened before the bad news hit California in Monterey Park. And Chief, Chief would appreciate this. They had a huge panel on responding to mass shootings. And how ironic, Chief, that was right before Monterey Park in Alhambra. I'm looking at, we were all there with the police chiefs from all over the country talking about how they responded from Colorado to other cities that had gone through Florida and everything else that happened. It was just, when I look back on it, to look at it now, what happened for us here, the unfortunate part of it. But what they're all doing, and we have all this. I know Parks and Rec would love it. Pickleball, the latest sports transforming cities. Of course, Parks and Rec's all gone now. Current issues in policing, that was cool too, but I'll read a couple of them. I want to go to all of them. Leveraging public partnerships to innovative solutions. How about that? Public-private partnerships, timely. Strategies to reduce homelessness. Their mayor's role in supporting mental health in communities, small business entrepreneurs. I think the final one, solving the challenges of affordable housing and community development. But all it was is they're really in depth. You hear from all over the country. And the last one, combating hate and extremism and the violence they fuel, from Councilor Howarth and former Mayor Stern. You get to hear not just cities of California, but all over the country. And there's nothing withheld. They'll tell you everything from beginning to end. So thank you for the mayor. It couldn't make it. I'm glad I attended and brought this back. And anybody wants to have it, city clerk will have it as a breakdown. And then finally, the few of us, the mayor, Councilor Howarth, City Manager Mo, City Attorney Barra, we all attended Independent City Association, their winter seminar this past weekend in Santa Barbara. And those are cities in Southern California that have their own police and/or fire departments that were there. And Chief Johnson was still trying to get her feet on the ground before she's going to go next year. But this is really good. And you get to hear from people like Sheriff Luna, who says, I'm only going to go for 25 minutes, and I'm spending 45 minutes with us and talk about a good speaker like the chief. He'll sit there and tell you everything. And you want to hear everything he's talking about and what's going on in LA County, things we don't see. And fentanyl, things that he knows about that we haven't, have much experience here with, but he does. He was a great speaker. Supervisor Janice Hahn, domestic violence, new elected official training. I thought it was great, not just the state required. And then, let's see, the last one I would say, we had 4 panel speakers: water, guns, e-bikes, I know Joe's favorite, and sidewalks. We're down the beach, talked about the fact all the cities now are liable. If you see a big raised sidewalk, someone trips and falls, guess who's paying the bill? We are. Talk about how Redondo Beach started a program where they went and get a grinder and grind all that down. No directory loves that. Grind all that down so no one is tripping and falling in their city. They identified all the spots that had raised concrete. So when someone says it's not worth it to go to these, you hear about ideas, that's why we go. So that's my report, Your Honor.
Councilor Ellis, I see you, but I'm going to take the moment to say that, yes, I was there all as well for my AB 1234 report, but also because Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery is being modest. He was the chair of the whole conference and helped put it on. He's the vice president, incoming mayor of ICA, something that I did before and he has done before as well. It does have a lot of value and, if anything, a lot of the networking, because sharing ideas and thoughts with our colleagues, electeds from other cities, really is fruitful and productive. So appreciate all you did to make that conference happen. With that, Councilmember Lesser.
Last week, I attended the League of California Cities New Mayors and Council Members Academy. I have the brochure, and if anyone's interested in links to some of the materials, I'm happy to share them with them.
What did you teach them?
What did I teach them? Is it old beat as opposed to a new beat? Patience. But what I learned was I went through the programming that's required of all of us as council members, the mandatory AB 1661 harassment prevention training for supervisors and officials. I was able to satisfy that requirement, as well as the AB 1234 training, which is the understanding public service ethics laws and principles. But beyond those basic programmings, I found the sessions on developing an effective city council and city manager team session to be particularly informative. The key to good governance and city success, it involves a lot of communications, and I will be communicating some of these principles to the city manager and others as time goes on.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Haworth.
I also attended the ICA conference, so that's my AB 1234 report, but it really was, it was very useful, very informative. Sheriff Luna was great. Communicating during a crisis, it was really, really great. So kudos. And then I also, though, I was on a panel at the Cal City's newly elected officials session that David attended. I was actually on the panel for Dysfunction Junction, which is an attempt to model good meeting behavior and Brown Act compliance to all the newly electeds in the room. And it was so much fun, and there were so many questions, and I learned a lot actually myself. So that was great.
Good. Can't wait to see that put in practice.
We're pretty functional, actually.
Any reports?
Yeah, I knocked on the door of the City Hall of Ho Chi Minh City, but
Oh, there
they
you
were
go.
off for the new year.
We didn't pay for that, though.
No. My bill.
All right, takes us to future agenda items. Anyone have any future agenda items?
I do.
Councilor Frank,
Well, let's go. Councilor Haworth first.
No,
You
go
raised your
ahead. I
hand?
didn't know you. Go ahead.
You raised your hand. Go.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's hard without the buttons. Not that I use them properly anyway. I would ask my colleagues if we could direct staff to
Well, this is to bring it back.
bring it back. I would like to bring back an item on Circuit, which is a hyperlocal transportation service that the Downtown Business Association is sort of working with, but I'd like it to come back in sort of a timely manner to discuss because they're looking for a grant opportunity. So it wouldn't be a full report on we should do this, but it would be information and how we can be a part of the grant. And
What's the deadline? I mean, do they just need a letter or something?
I think that we should discuss it before. You did a letter already, correct? For some, right, you did. But there is a component of it that we need to look at before it goes to that grant. And I can't remember if the deadline's end of March.
Is there a second for this?
I'll second.
All right.
Bring
There's
it
a
back,
second.
Just for
That's it.
information. Great, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Franklin.
Yes, hi. Appreciate that. I'd like to see us try once again to get our independence from County District Attorney Gascon's office for prosecution of misdemeanors and direct participation in the homeless court. We tried it. Like I said before, the definition of insanity is doing something again and expecting different results. But I think we should try that in hand with the new police officers we're going to be hiring, the existing police officers we have, where they do all this great work, and then the perpetrators because of directives for which we didn't vote for.
This is just to put it on.
Yeah.
It's not,
So
we get it. Is there a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second it. The clarification, it's to see if they would meet with us to discuss, not to discuss, but meet with us to discuss.
Yeah.
Then I'll second.
All right.
Great, thank you.
There's a second. Okay, anything else? All right.
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser.
Last Monday, a week ago last Monday, there was a power outage throughout Manhattan Beach, and particularly downtown driving through it. Many of the stoplights were completely black. They were not blinking lights because it appears that there aren't battery backups. It's a reminder of 10 years ago. What I'd like to propose is to have staff bring back of what would be involved in assessing and checking all of the signal lights to see which might need and how much it might cost to add battery backup so that at least we have blinking lights when there's another power outage.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay,
Second.
there's a second.
This is to bring Edison back. Yeah, you can ask Edison to come back without going through a three-step process.
This is not for Edison. This is direct staff to come back with a report on whether we have, what the cost of battery backup would be
Yeah.
if Edison fails.
And consulting with the city manager, you can just direct us to do that. Staff will come back with a report.
Okay, again, this isn't regarding Edison.
Right.
Okay, battery backup. Okay. All right.
Legal jujitsu there.
All right. Anything else?
No.
I don't have any. City manager report.
Yes.
What? Really?
It's only 9 o'clock. I'd like to ask Talene Mirzakhanian, our acting community development director, to bring us up to speed on outdoor dining process, since we're embarking on that shortly.
Good evening again, Talene Mirzakhanian, Acting Community Development Director. To provide you a quick glimpse of what the process would be like moving forward and in the next few months, I wanted to start by reiterating what I mentioned earlier this evening, which is that the next council action would be on March 21st when we select the members for the task force. Task force meetings will commence in April with the first course of business being identification of priority topics, concerns, benefits of the program, which will then serve to shape the future meeting agendas as well as our upcoming action items. In the meantime, staff has established regularly scheduled meetings with the Coastal Commission, the first of which occurred yesterday. This meeting was very productive and highlighted the priorities we will need to focus on for successful coastal permitting. And what that means is that we have agreed to keep them engaged in our process, what our vision is for this program, so that in return, they can tell us what they're looking for as a result of the program. That way, when we adopt the program and go to them requesting their approval, there will be no surprises. They will have participated in the process during the entire effort. And their part of the review and approval is going to go much more efficiently and quickly. Additionally, staff is in the midst of preparing an RFP for consultants in the expertise of design and engineering, financial feasibility, parking analyses, and environmental review, which would accompany this effort. And the plan is to secure a consultant in the spring, with our priority being focused on the parking component of it. That analysis needs to commence as early as the spring and the summer so we can truly understand what our parking needs would be in the peak seasons, and how we can accommodate the lost parking spaces through this program. And so that's where we are today, and that's what our next steps are going to look like. And we hope to have another update for you shortly after the meetings commence in April.
There we have a question.
Your Honor, I do two questions. Those people that are watching at home don't know we don't know the history of what's going on. Your comment to the Coastal Commission regarding permanent dining decks in the future if we vote that way. So
That's correct.
That's item one. Item two, we take it that you've informed all of the restaurant owners that have temporary decks that they need to be down by what date?
That's correct. We have informed them that they need to be down by March 10th. That's 10 days after the emergency order expires.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And if you could please confirm the cutoff date for signing up as a
February.
For the sign up.
Sure. February 24th at 5 p.m. is the deadline for applications for the task force.
What kind of notice is being provided to applicants regarding the time commitment? What I don't want to do is appoint anyone who, 3-4 meetings into it go, oh, I can't do this. This is more than I thought it was going to be.
Upon the council's decision to create the task force, it was announced that the meetings would be held once a month. And as a part of our application process, we've asked general questions about availability so that we could take those into consideration when we schedule the meetings.
Once a month. Okay. Councilor Horwath? Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other City manager report?
Not tonight, thank you.
City attorney report?
Nothing tonight, but also congratulations to Councilmember Montgomery, Mayor Pro Tem Montgomery. Yeah, it was excellent seminar, and it was really a great, and you're next in line, right? I think the mayor said you'd be next in line for mayor, but also president as well.
Oh, no, I meant president, yes.
Yes, I am by default, but I'll take that next year. I hope Chief Johnson and the captain can join us up there for the conference.
All right, informational items, there's the agenda forecast, and that's it. So then it takes to adjournment, and we will be adjourning to Tuesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. in the city council chambers here. With that,
Happy
night.
Valentine's Day, everybody.
yes. That to